Hello and welcome back to my channel, Whati If Deku 2O. Join us as we delve into the realms of fanfiction and fantasy, bringing you the best stories and discussions. Today, we're kicking off part 21 of our series, What If Everyone Gets Obsessed with Deku and Had Harem? If you enjoy this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more content in the future. The author of this story is Guy number 23 from FanfictionNet. All the relevant links are in the description. Feel free to say hello to the author on their profile. Now, let's dive into the fanfic. Fight, Deku-kun, you can do it. You were pretty energetic the whole day today, Najire? Something happened? Tatsuma asked the brunette next to her, but her eyes never left the duo currently sparring at the rooftop of her office building. No. I mean, there's something, but nothing super big. Fight, Deku-kun. The dragon hero turned her gaze to the giddy young lady next to her for a moment. It wasn't unlikely for Najire to have a 1,000-watt smile on her face most of the time, but Tatsuma did notice she was particularly extra happy. She could barely stay without jumping in place, mostly when Midoriya was next to her. Back to the current event that slightly bothered her. Oi, come on, I know you can do better, Deku. Usajima taunted motivated the green-haired teen as he missed her again. She didn't say a thing, but she was actually making an effort now to dodge the capture attempts, and she was quite impressed with how fast the boy had improved. From timing his jumps to estimating the distance, and reducing his reaction time to land and bounce back, Midoriya was making fast progress as he trained more in the arts of skipping around the rabbit hero was famous for. More importantly to him, he was managing to use a higher percentage of one for all without straining his body, and he felt that his control over Black Whip was more solid. The key was to try doing more than one thing at the same time and then make it an automatic thing of his thought process. The more he learned to multitask, the more naturally it would be to him, and as such, Midoriya would pull out more of this kind of thing. Put more energy into it. I'm not even sweating here, oi. Usajima sidestepped as she dodged the green teen, but she didn't expect Midoriya to launch a black tendril after he flew past her. If it wasn't for her keen reflexes, she would have been caught then and there. Sly kid, hey, that was cheating, she joked, taking a few steps back. The emerald teen got up and ready to jump again, with a grin matching hers crossing his lips. You never said it was against the rules. He had to admit that these extra hours of training were pretty fun, aside from extremely useful. Midoriya was still banned from the gym due to the house arrest, so it was definitely good to have some way to hone his physical skills, and he was training with Miruko, of all people. There were very few ways he could ask for a better match. Don't get arrogant now. You can do that if you get to hold me. Hi. And so they resumed the little game of catch turned up to 11. Meanwhile, the dragon hero watched with a blank expression, while internally her mind kept on telling her this wasn't a good idea. Yes, it was nice that Miruko decided to be more cooperative, even more considering the current times, but even so, she felt that dark-skinned woman was taking way too much glee in training him. That and the other things she said in particular, that is, Tatsuma didn't forget those. She also didn't forget how Usajima was decided to march to UA and get to know the person who got Kayama Nimiri hooked in. At the time, Tatsuma didn't think she was serious. They were fairly drunk, and the shocking revelations of that night didn't help at all in having clear thoughts. So the blondie got surprised when she realized this bunny girl was actually serious about it. She didn't want to believe it, but every day she gave Tatsuma more proof of the contrary. Because of that, the dragon hero felt that this training, too, was a way to lure in the sweet, innocent maybe not so innocent Midoriya into doing something he could come to regret later in his life. This was her main concern. His relationship with Midnight and MT. Lady was already highly questionable, but she could only see problems in someone like him getting, deeply involved with Usajima. Not that Tatsuma thought she was an awful person or anything. It was merely her worries of the woman not being the best parameter of relationships in his life. He deserved something better, dare she say. Someone more responsible and caring, someone loving, who places his well-being in the first place. Someone like her. Tatsuma shook her head. This was not a route she planned on taking. Maruko, let's end for today. It's already pretty late. Ha. But we're just getting in the right rhythm, right Deku? She said, dodging another tackle by a few centimeters. I have to take them back to UA, and they're already tired from today's work. Don't overdo it. Rolling her eyes, the rabbit hero dropped her ready stance, and so did Midoriya, who took a moment to catch his breath. One for all enhanced his stamina, but he never tried using full cowl for an extended period without pauses. His body felt sore from all that stress on his muscles, but it was more tolerable than before, a sign of progress. All right, I hear you. Mom. Deku, let's end here today. Mom, Tatsuma exclaimed. Yeah, you sound like you're his mother or something. Oh, and I'll take a shower here, she said, giving a tap on Tatsuma's shoulder as she walked past the dragon hero. Thank you for training me today again, Usajima-san. Midoriya came right after, stopping by Tatsuma. Don't mention it, came the casual reply. Meanwhile, Hado kept on with her giddy attitude, like when a kid is expecting on a line to ride a roller coaster. You did great today, Deku-kun. You're improving a lot, in my opinion. You think so? He scratched the back of his head. I agree, your control looks much more refined. Well, let's get you two back to UA. The dragon hero took a few steps forward and transformed into her well-known dragon form. By now Hado and Midoriya got used to riding on Rukyu's back going back to school. As usual, Midoriya said there was no need to, but she insisted. A part of her really liked how the two of them acted like kids during the trip. During this one, the Emerald Child questioned her about the investigation of the various crimes of the past weeks and the possible connection to the villain Napalm. So far, Centipter didn't find anything of value. He's working with the police too, but they don't have that many people at disposal for unclear cases like this. Apparently, they're looking into something else. I see. I wish there was more we could do to help. She could sense a feeling of disappointment in his voice. Don't worry, you and Nejire already did great keeping track of these cases. As I said, we're not obligated, but it helps in cases like this to file in the reports. And you also fought that villain pretty well, Midoriya, she assured the green team. Yeah, I saw the footage in the news. You looked really cool, Deku-kun, Hado said, effectively pushing Midoriya into his socially awkward mode. Compliments were still a difficult thing to handle for him. Thanks, senpai. Deku-kun, I said you could call me less formally, didn't I? We're practically partners already. Oh, why, yeah, Hado-san, then. She leaned forward and lightly pinched his cheek. Nejire. You already say it when we're on duty. Come on, say it, Nejire-chan, she insisted, poking his sides while Midoriya fought against the warmth in his face. As the two of them argued about honorifics, Rukyu arrived at their destination. They hopped off the dragon hero before she transformed back into her human form. Thank you again for the ride, Rukyu-san. But are you going back on foot? Not yet. I have to talk with someone in here, she replied, walking along with them. Hado sprinted ahead, turning to wave at her mentor. I'll just take a shower and meet you at your dorms, okay? Later, Deku-kun later, Rukyu-san, and off went the brunette, as enthusiastic as a kid in the amusement park. The dragon lady looked at the teen next to her with a curious face. Do you two have something planned? Yeah, Hado-senpai. Nejire-chan wanted to help me study and catch up on a few topics. I see. The job at my agency isn't taking too much of your time, is it? We can reduce the number of days and... No, that's not a problem at all. It's just that, well... He rubbed his arm, and she could see a nervous smile on his face, despite Midoriya looking at the floor. Difficulties in class? You don't look like you would have. No. I usually don't. The issue is, I'm under house arrest, so I'm not going to class. He admitted in shame. Oh, for how long? A month. It will be over in about a week, and I have been trying to keep track of the subjects. But I know there's a lot for me to catch up on regardless. Tatsuma wondered what could have happened to Midoriya to warrant him such a long penalization. Sure, she knew Aizawa was strict, but the green teen didn't seem the type to misbehave like that. Unless... Well, it's good that Nejier is willing to help you out, even though I'm sure she has her own set of exams to worry about. Yeah, I told her the same, but Nejier-chan insisted on helping. They walked together up to the main building of UA, where Tatsuma parted ways with him. As the Emerald Child headed back to his dorms, she watched him until she couldn't make out his figure in the dark of the night. Then she headed inside the main building. Her talk with a certain raven-haired pro-hero was long overdue. To no one's surprise, the moment Hado announced her presence at the Wana dorms, she caused a big ruckus among Midoriya's classmates. Some of the boys cried in frustration as they accused the poor teen of hogging all the fun, while the girls instantly entered in defense mode. He repeated time and time again that it was just a small study session between him and Hado-senpai. But the girls were not buying it, especially Uraraka. In their defense, they had all the reasons to be suspicious. Even more considering it was the brunette who suggested that. A girl as popular as Hado, who was in the Big Three, just her with Midoriya in his room for an entire hour. It spelled problem with big letters to his girlfriends, and that should definitely not pass under their watch. After all, if the goal was to help him study, she could do that where everyone could see and hear. In fact, all the girls were under house arrest too, so they might as well take the opportunity to. Sure, more people will make it more fun. Well, they didn't expect that response from their blue-haired senpai. Perhaps these suspicions were unfounded. In the end, they had a great time studying together, and were able to catch up on a few subjects despite the difficulty in understanding Hado's explanations. She knew the subjects all right, but her airhead nature didn't help in the way she explained things. Luckily for the girls, Midoriya seemed to be already used to that, so it was easy to translate her words. This was a surprisingly pleasant time they spent together. But I'm surprised. I didn't expect all of you guys to be struggling with the subjects, especially Yayurazu-chan. I thought it was just Deku-kun because of the job with Rukyu. Hado commented. Sigh, that's what happens when you're banned from class for a whole month, said the invisible girl nonchalantly. Toru-chan, HHH, Gyro jumped to silence her friend before she spilled more beans. House arrest? The girls exchanged worried looks. They wanted to keep it a secret as much as possible, but now it was too late. The brunette's curiosity has been triggered. Her eyes were twinkling with excitement. What? What? Did you guys get in trouble with Aizawa-sensei? It must have been something serious for you all to get a whole month. The girls started to panic a little. Whoever fell under the gaze of Hado-senpai had to look elsewhere while they thought of a suitable excuse for covering this major slip from the invisible girl. Why, you see, Hado-senpai, we all got house arrested because Ashido was desperately trying to come up with anything that sounded at least plausible. But it had to involve them all in some way and also be worthy of the punishment. She looked left and right, seeking a streak of inspiration, perhaps, and then her yellow eyes fell upon her amphibian friend. Tsu-chan, Tsu-chan was running around in her swimsuit. Uraraka blurted out of nowhere, startling everyone in the bedroom, but mostly the accused girl. KKK Kiro? Ah, that's it. Tsu-chan was running, jumping around the pool in her swimsuit. Ashido followed the brunette to whoever she was going to. Mina-chan, Tsuyu cried. Was she really going to be the scapegoat, scapefrog in this mess? I'm so sorry, Tsu-chan. They apologized in their heads and would make sure to verbalize it later on. But it doesn't sound like something Aizawa-sensei would get mad at. Hado looked at the two girls and Tsuyu with a suspicious look, so Gyro jumped on the train. That's because Su-chan was actually acting like a frog. You see, she had a fever. She spent too much time in the pool the other day and ended up catching a cold. And the fever made her act like a frog. Yayurazu completed Gyro's line of thought, to which the rocker girl was very thankful. Oh, you can really do that, Su-chan? Hado turned to the frog girl, barely keeping in place due to her excitement. Unfortunately for Tsuyu, she had no other choice than to accept this mark on her reputation. Yes, Ribbit. Wow, I had no idea. I've heard something about mutant quirks related to animals, but I never thought it would be so serious, even more, because it was caused by a fever. She seemed to be pondering over it. Well, Hound Dog Sensei acts pretty feral at times. Right, senpai? Midoriya didn't like to throw Tsuyu under the bus, just like the other girls, but it would be best if Hado senpai didn't know about the spicy details of his relationship with them. Yeah, it kinda makes sense. But Midoriya, why did you get arrested? And why did you girls get arrested? I was taking care of her, and I thought it would be a good idea if Tsu had some fresh air. Midoriya was terrible at lying. And then Tsu-chan started to jump around catching flies, and we had to go there to capture her, and we all ended up falling in the pool. Hagakure put the final nail on this cover-up and Tsuyu's image. Wow, all that happened to you, Tsu-chan? The brunette sounded really concerned. Well, yeah, sometimes I feel like just sitting on a leaf. I wonder why. Ribbit. The poor girl did her best to act accordingly. For someone that always spoke her mind, it was quite difficult. There. No need to feel embarrassed. It is simply your nature, right? Hado gave Tsuyu a few head pats, reassuring the frog girl with a bright smile, like a big sis. I guess, Ribbit. All those involved in this lie were deeply apologizing and thanking her for taking this bullet. Tsu-chan was the hero of that night. Rukiu knocked at the door and waited. Or at least she tried. Her anxiousness flowed through her body right to her foot that constantly tapped the floor. She knocked on the door again. Maybe she was already asleep. The teacher's life could be really tiring, or so she has been told. It would be pretty ironic, considering her hero name. Tatsuma knocked on the door again, looking to the sides, as if she was doing something that might be reproved by an outside spectator. Her hand moved to hit the wooden door again, but it opened right on time, followed by a very familiar and rather tired voice. I heard on the first knock. Geez, who the hell it is, and what do you Ruko? Kayama's annoyed expression quickly turned into one of surprise. What are you doing here at this hour? Did something happen? We have to talk, the dragon hero said, straight to the point. Ooh, okay, wanna come in? Thank you. Kayama moved the door a little more and Tatsuma was already making her way inside. Such haste made the raven-haired hero get a bad feeling about whatever was the topic of this talk. Tatsuma, do you have a problem? Does it have to do with Midoriya? Yes, it is about him. The blondie answered, taking a seat on the couch. Sensing the urgency in her words and demeanor, and hearing her lover's name, Kayama picked a chair and sat in front of her surprised guest. What's up with him? There was a minute of silence between them. Despite the exchange of intense stares, deep inside Tatsuma felt uneasy and hesitant. But she absolutely had to do it. Midoriya could be at risk here. Kayama-san, no Nimiri. I need you to break up with Midoriya. Kayama blinked a few times with a blank expression. Even if she was tired from rating schoolwork, Kayama was aware enough to listen clearly to what Tatsuma said, but she didn't understand at all. You heard me. Nimiri, please break up with Midoriya. The blondie repeated the rather intrusive request. And why exactly would I break up with my honey? Actually, why are you bringing this up? Look, Nimiri, due to certain circumstances I can't really tell you the reason, but you have to let go of him. I bet it was fun for a while, but it is already time for you to do the right thing. She insisted, which bothered the lady in front of her. Do the right thing? Ruko, unless you give me a good reason, and I mean a really good one, there's no breaking up happening, nor anything. Nimiri, it is for the best that you must stop dating Midoriya. Is this some kind of joke? No, I'm serious. This situation is serious. Then at least tell me why you're asking me this nonsense. I can't tell. Don't give me that crap, Ruko. If you're coming all the way here to demand that I break up with the love of my life, you better have a hell of a good reason. Kayama was irreducible in her stance. Why did Tatsuma think this could be solved with a simple talk and her asking nicely? And Nimiri, believe me when I say that I only have the best interest for Midoriya in mind. Well, so do I. In fact, between the two of us, it should be obvious who cares more about him, she said, getting up from the chair with a rather displeased face. Now, if that is all, I still have a couple of works to grade. You know where the door is, don't you? Nimiri, the dragon lady shot up, stepping in front of her friend, even though she was risking changing that status. Sigh, Ruko, I consider you a big friend, you know. That shows because I asked you to keep Izuku and me a secret, and you kept that promise. I did, right? You don't have any idea how much I thought about that in the following days. Yeah, that was a very stressful night. I think I never thanked you properly, so I'm doing it now. That said, Kayama's annoyed face changed into one of mild anger. I will not break up with him just because you asked. Even if you had a good reason, which I think you don't, I wouldn't do it. They locked gazes, just a few centimeters apart. Kayama was fairly taller than Tatsuma, so the hands on her hips and the angry face worked quite well for intimidation, even though the latter could easily turn the tables with her dragon form. However, the blondie felt something bubbling inside her, that same feeling when she was fighting that boiling blood villain, that urge to protect the young man. Right now, she had to protect him from bad influences like Rumi and, unfortunately, Nimiri too. You need a good reason. What about that obvious age gap, huh? Oh, and how about him being your student? Is that enough reason for you? He doesn't mind that, and neither do I. Just because he doesn't mind, doesn't mean it is good for him. And what makes you think he can't decide what's good for him? Well, he clearly doesn't know how to pick relationships. At that moment, Kayama closed the distance, effectively pushing Tatsuma back with her chest. Are you implying what I think you are? She was stunned for a moment, but Tatsuma pushed back, poking the R-rated hero and her advantage. Something tells me you already figured that out. You know this is not normal, right? You know there can't possibly be a normal relationship between you and Midoriya. I'll be the judge of that. Can't you stop being so selfish? Selfish? If you cared so much about Midoriya, you would stop leading him around and let him have a normal, healthy relationship with a girl at his age. But no, you can't let go, can you? Where the hell did you get that from? You know what? Yes, I can't let go of him. I don't want to. But you don't get to tell if this is okay or not, Ruko. Is that so? Yes, because you're not a part of his life like I am. Unless? Kayama folded her arms, tapping her foot on the floor and examining the blondie in front of her as if she was trying to look into her soul. Tatsuma didn't back down, though. Unless you're fancying my honey. So, what is it? Tatsuma immediately went red. What the hell are you talking about? I'm not into Midoriya. Oh really? Why does it bother you so much then? I don't need that kind of reason to be bothered. Either you think I'm some kind of demon luring Izuku into the path of damnation, or you're developing feelings for him and you want me out of the game. So, which one is it? I don't have feelings for him, Ninuri. Go tell that to Rumi. That rabbit in heat. Tatsuma closed her mouth shut, but she had already said too much. Wait, Rumi? Aren't you two in a team now? Well, since she already let that slip, she might as well tell the whole story. Exactly. At first, I was really surprised by her offering to make a temporary team. I felt glad that she was finally working with others, honestly. But then I discovered why she asked me that. So what you're saying is that Rumi wants to smash with my honey. Tatsuma nodded. And why should I break up with him, then? I'm not following. You have to tell him that this is not normal, and set an example. Otherwise, he'll think it is all right to hook up with Rumi or any other woman that wants to take advantage of him. Don't you see? You're shaping unrealistic expectations into him, Nimiri. Kayama was mildly impressed, as Tatsuma looked and sounded completely sure of her speech. She genuinely wanted to protect the Emerald Child, and she appreciated that. Not only was she training him on the whole hero thing, but she was also concerned about his well-being as a person too. Kayama knew about her liking for kids. There was just a tiny problem in all this. Okay, thanks for telling me this, Ruko. Tatsuma sighed in relief. But I'm still not breaking up with him. Relief turned into annoyance pretty quick. Really? After everything I told you? Yeah, I mean, come on, Ruko. Do you really believe I would keep that relationship if he didn't want this too? Think, he's not nearly as innocent and clueless as you imagine he is. Well, definitely dense, but not dumb. The dragon hero groaned in frustration. Once again, just because he thinks it is okay doesn't make it okay. And you get to decide what is okay and what isn't. Well, I'm not a 16-year-old, am I? They fell silent again and started another staring contest. But this time Nimiri didn't look as menacing, perhaps because she didn't see Ruko as a direct threat to her relationship with Izuku. Listen, he's responsible and should know better than to let any woman take advantage of him. Izuku knows how to handle women. Is that so? I know so. After all, a smug smile crept on her lips. He wouldn't have a whole harem of girls crazy for him if he didn't. Tatsuma blinked a few times, speechless. What now? You heard me. He's much more, experienced than you think, and he is very loyal too, so I wouldn't worry about Rumi trying to hook him up. For some reason, the prideful look on Kayama's face was making Tatsuma angry. Was this really something she could brag about? Yes, so you talked him into a life of debauchery. No, I merely guided him. And don't blame me, Honey and his classmates were already getting frisky before I joined them. And not only did you allow that kind of behavior, but you also encouraged it. Actually, I'm pretty sure I put the girls in check for a while. My poor Honey was barely keeping it together, so I had to intervene, teach them a few things about adult life. The dragon hero stared at the raven-haired woman with a look of disbelief and distaste. You big whore. Oi, I might take offense to that. Then how else should I address you, huh? Hey, it was consensual. Most of it. Oh my God, Nimiri, do you listen to yourself? Feeling tired, Kayama ran a hand through her hair, looking at the ceiling and huffing. She should know this situation would come sooner or later. Tatsuma wasn't someone to simply ignore when something is wrong, even if it causes a major inconvenience. She sat on her bed, pinching the bridge of her nose. I know it, Ruko, I really know. Sometimes, I do look at myself in the mirror and feel like a freak for feeling the way I feel for him. Izuku, even after all that happened between us, he's still like a ray of sunshine, and he's one of my students, for crying out loud. But, she raised her head and looked Tatsuma right in the eye. I cannot possibly live lying to myself about how I feel. This is not something as simple as me being horny. He's different. He means the world to me. The dragon lady felt the weight of her friend's words. She really meant every single one of them, and it shook her until now unwavering resolve. I will ask you again to keep it a secret, Ruko, because I don't have many options to begin with. And if you could keep an eye on Rumi for me, it would be really nice of you. And I get that you want to protect him, I want it too. But, please, don't tell me to leave him. When you find someone like him in your life, then maybe you'll see what I'm getting at here. So, please, I'm asking you as a friend. Tatsuma came here with a plan in mind. Tell Kamea to break up with Midoriya, and then put that white-haired tanned rabbit in her place, away from the Emerald Teen. The first part has just failed, as she did not have the heart to keep pressing Kayama. At least with her, the Dragon Lady could feel somewhat at ease, knowing he was with someone responsible, not to devalue Usajima, but she was way too reckless about a lot of things in her life. And even though she had more drinks than usual, Tatsuma remembered well how Rumi was ready to jump his bones that night. Damn, she had been watching the bunny girl flaunting her body in front of him for a while now, so intervention was much needed. Sigh fine, I'll keep my mouth shut. You're crazy, do you know that? Yeah, I think I'm a little crazy, all right, she answered with a sincere smile. It wasn't that often that Kayama showed her true emotions. Not that she lied to others, but she always had that confident, seductive vibe to her. Crazy and horny. Hey, I bet you would be the same if you were in my place. Kayama joked. Don't even think about it. I could never see myself doing that with him. How would you know? You never tried before. Haha, very funny. Queen of BDSM, what are you going to do about Rumi, anyway? Right now? Nothing. But if she lays a hand on him with perverted intent, I'm going to yank her fluffy tail off and shove it down her throat. Just to be safe, Tatsuma took a step back. It could be her quirk activating, or Kayama was releasing a powerful aura of anger and possessive jealousy. So we're going on a joint mission, Rukyu-san? Midoriya asked the dragon hero as they drove to the port district. Yes, it was a request from the network, so the details will be given to us on the spot. The blondie calmly explained, turning her head as she heard her rabbit teammate let out a long, annoyed groan. Oog, why do we have to side with extras again? Said Maruko, uncrossing and crossing her legs for the 30th time in 5 minutes. The foot resting on the car's floor tapped rapidly. She talks like Kaken. Because, Rukyu began, rolling her eyes as she had to repeat herself. Again. The Hero Assistance Network makes requests based on the most suitable heroes for the job. Couldn't you skip and get something that we could do by ourselves? You can always hop off and go out and do your thing, you know. Nope, I would die of boredom. Where are all those idiots who were stealing and breaking stuff lately? In prison, where they should be. Are you really asking for criminals to do crimes? Yeah, how am I supposed to kick their asses in jail if they don't show up? Bunch of cowards. Well, considering how a lot of bad guys got arrested these weeks, I guess they would feel scared of misbehaving. As expected from Maruko, you scared them away, Hado commented, giving the dark-skinned woman a thumbs up. Senpai does have a point. I'm not a specialist in this, but I guess you can inhibit criminal activity that way too. Like setting up an example, Midoriya said, taking care not to enter another mumbling train. You're not wrong. It means we the heroes are doing our job right and we're here. The black vehicle pulled and out came the hero team. They were quickly greeted by a young lady in a white and blue sailor uniform, complete with a hat. Big fins came from the sides of her head, finishing the sea theme with light blue hair. Thank you for coming so fast, Rukyu-san. We're sort of in a hurry, said Sirius, as she looked at the current team the dragon hero had with her. Nejire-chan, the U, a student that has been under her wings for a good while now. Maruko, a mostly unexpected partnership. And another U, a student, a freshman at it. Don't mention it, we're here to help. So, what is the situation? Let's get aboard the Mariner, I'll explain on the way. As they walked through the docks and into the ship named Oki Mariner, the crew of tall men quickly saluted them, and among them, Midoriya spotted a familiar figure, a fellow green-haired person. Tsu-chan, he let his excitement overflow a bit. which caught the attention of the two pros next to him and Nejires too. Midoriya-chan. The frog girl looked even more excited by seeing the emerald child. I didn't expect to see you here, Ribbit, she said as they practically ran to each other. Tsuyu had to hold back the need to hug him on the spot. I could say the same. I thought the school had denied your request to do your work study here. Well, yes, but Sirius Senpai made a very specific request to Principal Nezu for this mission, and in the end he allowed me to come. Ribbit. Tsuyu lit up like a Christmas tree. I see you two are well acquainted already. That's good, Sirius said, breaking the two teens from their merry reunion. It's not like they didn't see each other every day at some point, but between the work studies and the ban on nightly fun time, the girls had spent less time with Midoriya than they deemed necessary. Studying together was nice, but it wasn't nearly as intimate. Yes, we're in the same class, Ribbit. Cool, I can't wait to work with Tsu-chan. Hado butted in between the two green heads, wrapping her arms around their shoulders and pulling both into a group hug. Looks like the trip will get more energetic for a while. A voice came from the upper deck. Yo, thanks for coming, Rukyu. Come, I'll pass on the details. Men, prepare for immediate departure. Selkie gave the command, motioning for the heroes to follow him. As the crew shouted in agreement and got busy with the matters of the ship, the heroes followed Selkie inside the bridge. I'll make it brief. We received some info about a ship transporting quirk-enhancing drugs. We discovered the roaming area and the route, but we found problems dealing with them the last time. Someone in the crew has a quirk capable of generating a smokescreen that they use to evade conflict. Judging by the side of it, they must be using enhancers too. This, and the destruction of a factory recently, led me to believe their shipment is a dangerous quantity of trigger, a drug popular for the extreme peaks of power. I believe your group has dealt with something similar, right, Rukyu? She nodded with a serious look on her face. Deku and I faced a villain by the name of Napalm. His usage of the drug enhancer was borderline suicidal, not to mention extremely dangerous to everyone around him, she said, the last part directing a concerned gaze to the emerald teen next to her. Then you know what to expect. We traced the stateless ship to the Verais Islands, which is a problem on its own. Searches in that region are complicated without air support, and a bunch of smugglers with access to lots of trigger only increases the danger. I received a notice from Fatgum, advising for extra caution because you can never know how much a quirk can be boosted. Needless to say, stopping this cargo from leaving is the priority. We already have enough problems to deal with power-crazed gangs running around. Everyone on the bridge nodded in agreement. The objective was set, and they were on their way to deal with these smugglers. There was this minor feeling of tension in the air, mostly around the young heroes in training. It certainly wasn't the first time Midoriya and Tsuyu made something like this. In fact, they went through way more than any student should, but still, the feeling of anticipation remained. Especially for someone like Midoriya, who tended to carry the world on his shoulders. But then he felt a real weight rest on his shoulder. Looking at it, he found a hand, following it up to meet Rukyu's understanding and comforting smile. Don't worry too much, Deku. Feeling tense before the mission starts will do you no good, she said softly. She's right. It's normal to feel anxious about a storm, but it is better to wait until you can see it. Try relaxing with your friends at the deck. We have some time before reaching Verais. Selkie complimented Rukyu's advice. I guess you are right, Midoriya said, taking a deep breath to calm himself down and leaving the bridge. Once outside, he quickly was joined by Tsuyu, and then by Hado. The blue-haired girl took over most of the conversation, describing with a lot of excitement how she and Deku were basically partners now in fighting crime. She also told the frog girl about her time with Rukyu and how she would love to have Tsu-chan in the team too. For once Tsuyu felt a little overwhelmed by the information dump, and she couldn't help but glance at Midoriya on the other side of the bubbly girl. He offered a sympathetic smile. hopefully. Tsuyu didn't let it show, but the frog girl wasn't thrilled to know her man was that close with their senpai. Call it intuition, backed up by a quite long track record. Regardless, before the end of the afternoon, they arrived at the islands. They were divided into 3 teams. Rukyu and Nejire-chan would cover the area through the air. Selkie and Froppy would board the ship. Deku and Maruko would guard the ship along with Sirius and the crew. Not the best setup for the impatient rabbit, but it would have to do. As they expected, the enemy ship came out of hiding at the end of the afternoon, trying to go unnoticed during the night. A large smokescreen covered the area, but the same trick wouldn't work twice on the sea rescue hero. Using his sonar, Selkie reported the situation to Sirius. 2, 3, 4 suspects on the ship. They'll board the ship right now. Did you copy it? Understood, answered the blondie, currently in her dragon form, watching from above. I have 0 visibility at the moment. That won't be an issue. Captain can take care of this too, she affirmed. Back at the water, Selkie emerged like a torpedo from the sea, landing on the deck. Froppy latched on the side of the hull and climbed her way up. The smokescreen was so dense he couldn't see a meter ahead of him, but his sonar was perfect for this type of situation. After all, if he couldn't see, chances are the enemy couldn't either. Oi, I think they are on the ship. Where? How will I know? I can't see shit with your smoke. They were clearly nervous, which wasn't a good thing. Having possession of drugs like trigger, these criminals were much more prone to do something reckless and stupid. Come on, heroes, we're going to beat the shit out of you. You better have the strength to back up that claim, lass, Selkie taunted him. With all that noise, those thugs were making it far too easy for his echolocation. You all are nothing, not when we have a FCK ton of oof. His words died as the air left his lungs, courtesy of a strong punch to his guts. You were saying, said the seal man, tossing him across the deck and close to Froppy. This is the smokescreen one. Take care of him, Froppy. Aye. Froppy swiftly landed and finished the dude by jumping and hitting him with a double kick. A lot of smoke came out, like a squid fleeing the scene with ink. The frog girl then quickly put handcuffs on the unconscious criminal. Meanwhile, Selkie headed to the bridge, where he detected another one of the smugglers. He barged in through the steel door, shouting to the thug at the rem to give up peacefully, as per the standard procedure. We can do this the easy way, or the hard way, lass. Ha! How about we do this my way? Shouted the criminal as he pulled a syringe full of a green liquid, trigger. Selkie reacted quicker, springing forward with a leap and hitting the smuggler with his super move, Selkie Punch, which sent the dude flying through the window and across the deck, landing with a thud, unconscious. Meanwhile, Froppy scouted the rest of the ship, looking for the smuggled drugs, but they were nowhere to be found. She thought of looking at the internal compartments of the ship, but before she could find a hatch or a door, a sound of buzzing caught her attention. Well, it sounded like buzzing, but it also sounded like laughter and a snarl. She wasn't alone in here. Selkie did mention there were at least 2 more smugglers in the ship, so she braced herself for combat. Unfortunately, the smokescreen was still pretty thick, and she didn't have an echolocation ability at her disposal. Bzzzzz. Froppy reacted on instinct, leaping over the side rail as she overshot her jump while evading the oncoming attack. Looking up at the deck, she failed to see her assailant. The buzzing mixed with snickering came again, this time clearer to the frog girl. Hopping back on the deck, she looked around carefully, trying to locate the criminal in the mist. Then, a harsh and high-pitched voice sounded in the eerie ambient. Shh, shh, look at what we have here. A little froggy trying to play the hero. The low buzzing seemed to come from multiple places, as well as the quite irritating voice. Great, this B-tier horror movie setup is everything I needed, Ribbit. Not that she was one to fool around in service, but she couldn't help but deadpan at the typical situation she was currently in. Froppy, do you need backup? Sirius asked through her comlink. No, not yet. I have a good feeling about this. It wasn't overconfidence. Tsuyu had been training a lot since the last time she worked with the Oki Marine crew. Not only that, everyone was giving their best to improve, and she couldn't let herself fall behind. Oh, is this little froggy that brave? Let's see how it serves you, hero wannabe. And, as predictable as she suspected, the mysterious enemy attacked again. She didn't see where it came from, so she resorted to jumping up high. The attacks kept coming for a while, but it wasn't that hard to evade, since there was always a low humming before it came. Plus, whoever it was refused to shut up, which was getting on her nerves. That voice was so annoying, like a mosquito you can't swat away and keeps flying around your head. The smoke is too thick and I don't have sonar like Selkie. And this idiot knows where I'm, so... She formed a plan in her head. Shh. Prepare. Froggy, I'm going to drain you like a Capri Sun. Wait, where is she? The criminal landed on the deck, but Froppy was nowhere to be found. Did she escape? But how? Thank you for being so annoyingly noisy, a voice came from behind, and before he knew it, he got a foot to the face, knocking him off the floor. It makes it easier to find you, Ribbit. The smokescreen on the deck was finally dispersing, allowing her to see exactly who this smuggler was. Froppy couldn't help but cringe at the sight. Yua. The criminal slowly sat up, rubbing his sore, long and pointy nose. His skin was of a dirty and opaque dark gray, and he had thin hairs unevenly distributed around his body. There was a second pair of limbs below his arms, thin, insectoid arms that didn't look strong at all. But the ugliest part was the head. Compound eyes instead of human ones, the aforementioned pointy nose, akin to a nail, and serrated teeth, more irregular than Kirishima's, and nowhere close in terms of hygiene. It probably wasn't the most professional thing to do, but Froppy cringed again. Yua, Ribbit. Looks like someone took a major beating from the ugly stick, she said, pulling a second pair of handcuffs. Should she bring in the third, though? However, the insectoid criminal snarled again, glaring at her as he made a buzzing sound. Short and distorted wings flapped quickly, and he leaped back at a surprisingly high speed, landing on his feet. Grrrr, damn heroes. He appeared to be shaking in anger. Froppy got into a fighting stance. Damn you heroes, and your annoying cute mutation quirks. Ribbit. The unusual shout caught her off guard, but it wasn't that hard to evade the incoming attack with a simple roll to the side. The angered human-sized insect kept lunging at Froppy, quite literally foaming from the mouth. FCKU heroes, with your precious mutant quirks, and your pretty clothes, and cute animals, to hell with you. Ribbit, don't be mad at me for ending on the wrong side of the gene pool. Froppy really wanted to take this seriously, but this dude was too much of a joke. Come to think of it, everything he did up to now was to lunge at her in a straight line, only to do the same from another angle. Plus, this level of ugliness was kinda distracting, so she had to make an effort to not gag or something. She was partially frog, yes, and at times she felt an inner impulse from deep within, telling her to aim at that fly perusing the kitchen at her home. But there was no way she would touch this dude with her tongue. Who knew what kind of pile he had landed on? Stay put, you stupid toad. I'm going to get you full of holes. No, thank you, Ribbit, she said, jumping high and using her tongue to hold on to the wall of the bridge and reel in, sticking to it. Hey, get back down here, you brat. Why don't you get up here with those wings? Or are they just for show? Actually, even if that was the case, they look really ugly, Ribbit. The mosquito man was visibly shaking with anger, snarling and buzzing. That's it, I'm gonna drain you. And with that, he crouched, taking aim and flapping those frail-looking wings incredibly fast. He jumped at Froppy like a dart. In fact, he had all four arms stretched behind him, so it was pretty much a human dart, even more with that pointy nose. She was quite surprised, to be honest. I didn't think it would really work. At the last second, Froppy dropped from the wall, giving the mosquito man the displeasure of hitting at full speed, and as a result, his nose got stuck, while his entire face felt sore from the impact. Well, that was surprisingly easy. You're not good at this, are you? Ribbit. Her answer was a low buzzing as the mosquito man tried to break free. Let's get this over with, she said, jumping up and holding him by his ankles, noticing the feet were equally ugly as the rest of this excuse of a smuggler. With a strong pull, Froppy yanked him from the wall, spinning in the air and slamming him on a pile of wooden crates. Froppy, is everything all right? Selkie shouted from the bridge. Hi, I just got the third smuggler, Ribbit. Good job. I secured the bridge. These smugglers are not going anywhere with these drugs now. Clank. That was the sound of something mechanical moving. Selkie noticed a flashing light on the ship's control panel. Could it be? He looked ahead, trying to make things out through the dissipating smoke, and much to his anger, he saw a small hydroplane coming out of the hull of the ship. Problems, they have a hydroplane, serious. Sorry, Captain, we're too far blocking the ship. I can't see them, Ryukyu responded, looking at the situation from above. Unfortunately, she couldn't see much into the area yet. It is coming from the prow. Quick, Ryukyu. I'm on it, but they're going to take off. I'm going to dive. Hang in there, Nejire-chan. Ryukyu alerted the brunette before folding her wings and diving like a meteor. She was aiming at the general direction of the ship, slightly forward, but the smoke made it too hard to predict where the plane was. Plus, she couldn't simply crash land into it. Imagine the damages that it would cause to the environment. As she entered the smoke cloud, Ryukyu opened her wing, flapping to reduce her speed and creating a strong gust of wind that dispersed the remaining smoke. However, she missed the plane's position by 200 or 300 meters, and what was worse, it was gaining speed. Damn it! She went as fast as she could, but being that large, Ryukyu couldn't accelerate that fast. It is faster than me, I won't catch up. Froppy ran to the side of the ship, leaning over the rail, only to see the plane leaving the hidden dock and speeding up as the smoke got thinner. Ribbit, if I had checked the inside of the ship first. Don't give up yet, Froppy, a very familiar voice told her. We won't let them escape. Right, Sirius-san. Back at the Oki Mariner, Sirius positioned the harpoon turret, predicting the trajectory of the plane. You can count on that. Now, Deku. On top of the harpoon, Deku held tight. Froppy, I'm giving you a little ride. The frog girl quickly jumped to the highest point in the ship, waiting for the signal. Sirius watched attentively as the plane had to make a U-turn if they wanted to go anywhere with the land. And then she fired. Deku felt himself accelerate a lot in a very short time. If it wasn't for his full cowl, he would have let go of the harpoon. As he soared through the air, he gave the signal, releasing a black tendril from his hand. Now. Froppy jumped and the tendril wrapped around her wrist, pulling her together with Deku into the air. They only had one chance to make it work, but she wasn't worried. She trusted Deku with her life, and not only because he was her boyfriend. Channeling more power to his right arm, Deku swung Froppy in a slingshot, focusing all his might into controlling the output and stretching the black whip as far as he could. The result, a success. The rainy season hero landed on the hydroplane before it could get to full speed in the air. The wind fought against her, but she managed to get inside, surprising the pilot that looked like a sea urchin. What the how did you get here? The smuggler pulled out an injection of trigger, but Froppy reacted by shooting her tongue to yank it from his hand. But he managed to pull back, making her trip. With that opening, he injected the green liquid from the vial. It had a quick effect, as the tiny needles around his body grew more. He turned around with a menacing grin, but it suddenly turned into a pained expression. Gripping his sides, the urchin smuggler howled in pain, and as he did so, the needle shot from his body like bullets. That's bad. Froppy barely dodged, ducking behind the crates of the drug on the back of the plane. Peeking from behind her cover, she realized two things. 1. This thug was on the floor, passed out. 2. The plane was starting to nosedive. Running to the controls, she realized a third thing. The controls were busted, full of sharp needles. That's really bad, Ribbit. Froppy, report the situation. Are you hurt? Came Sirius from the comlink. I'm fine. The last smuggler passed out after injecting the drug on himself. The real problem is that the controls are kinda busted, and the plane is diving. Froppy, if you jump now, I can catch you. That was Rukio. But... She looked behind her. If all those chemicals land in the water... No, I'll try to land this thing, Ribbit. Gathering her resolve, Froppy avoided some of the needles on the floor, held the flight lever, and pulled with all her strength. She had no idea if this thing was fully dependent on hydraulics or electric systems, but she had to try. She pulled with all her strength, and the bar made a creaking noise, which she wasn't sure was a good sign. However, the plane's nose going slightly up certainly was, so she pulled even more. Froppy-chan, turn off the motors. We're going to catch up to you. Rukio said there must be some kind of lever. That was her senpai, Nijire-chan. The moment she saw Deku and Froppy flying through the air, Rukio resumed her chase, flapping her wings as strong and fast as she could. Got it. Glancing at the panel, she used her tongue to pull the speed lever, making the motor slow down. Come on, come on, come on, slow down, you piece of junk, Ribbit. The plane was pulling up, but nearly as fast enough. It was approaching the sea fast, so Froppy braced for the impact, only to feel the whole thing shake. Looking to the side, she saw a large claw sunk into the hull and huge wings wide open. Rukio made it in time. Nijire-chan. On it. Nijire-chan jumped forward without thinking twice, floating below the hydroplane, and when they were close enough to the water, she used her waves to cushion the fall and pull the nose up, along with the dragon hero using her mighty wings. The plane landed safely on the sea, prompting cheers in the radio channels. Inside the plane, Froppy kneeled at the door to help her senpai get up. Phew, that way was more intense than I expected. Don't you think so, Froppy-chan? Despite her words, Nijire seemed pretty upbeat about the whole thing. I have to admit I wasn't very thrilled about being flung around like a yo-yo and Midoriya-chan. It's okay, Deku is back at the Oki Mariner. Ah, thanks, Sirius Senpai. That was amazing, Su-chan, Froppy. Good job up in there. Thanks, Deku, but next time I'll leave the flying around to you. I'm an amphibian, not a bird. Haha, yeah, next time, Deku said, feeling relieved that Tsuyu was safe and sound after that stunt. Sure, he would never do something to endanger her, and he was aware of her strength as a hero, but Midoriya couldn't help but worry about his girlfriend. He reacted pretty well to the situation, thanks to Sirius' quick thinking, and he knew he could count on Froppy to follow this crazy plan. But there wasn't such a thing as worrying too much when it came to his loved ones. Wow, I think I just thought like Mom. You sure did, Izuku dear. That's so sweet of you, and your mother is equally as lovable. Sounded the voice inside his head. There was no teasing tone in her compliment. This time, the mission is not over yet. We still have to secure the drugs and capture the smugglers. Men, to your positions, Sirius gave the command voice. When Selkie wasn't on the ship, she took the role of captain. Midoriya playfully saluted from where he was standing, but he was looking forward to changing his costume or at least making them less soaked. He shook his green locks, pretty much like a cat after getting caught in the rain, and then he noticed the rabbit hero standing still on the deck, tapping her foot and scratching the back of her head. Maruko-san, is something wrong? She didn't respond. Maruko-san? Maruko-san. Muru. I can't believe this. The boy recoiled a little at the sudden burst. Is something wrong? Of course it is. Can't you see? The pair of shiny emerald pools told her the answer was no. Ugh, I came all the way here and I didn't do a single thing. not a single butt kicked. Well, if you think about it, it means things went well and you didn't have to, kick anyone's butt. I know, right? I could have stayed on land, kicking butts. You seem very emphatic about kicking butts, Maruko-san. Well, yeah, that's what I do. Butt-kicking villains straight to prison, where they belong. Every minute I spend here is a minute I could be spending elsewhere. Kicking butts. Can we stop mentioning butts all the time? Why? You don't like it. I don't know if that's the professional way to address say what. Did he mishear what she just said? Judging by the way she walked around him, one hand under her chin, the other on her hip, and her eyes fixed on his nether regions, he assumed that wasn't the case. I have to say, you do have a nice butt, Midoriya. I have? He instinctively covered his behind, feeling a faint heat come to his cheeks as the bunny girl looked at him with a curious face. Yeah, I can tell. You have been training your legs more as I told you, haven't you? Yes. You could tell by that? Yup. Training your legs the right way is very important. They're one of your strongest limbs, and you have to focus on each one of the muscular groups to get the maximum potential from them. That involves the gluteus, surprisingly. Midoriya seemed to ponder over her advice for a short while, entering into mumbling mode. It seems to be true. I have been using my legs after all, more like an alternative to my arms, but I can probably get more from them with a focused training. Damn right you can, boy. I know it's cool to give one-punch finishers like All Might and Endeavor, but you can do the same with kicks. Ha 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 ha, said the loud dark-skinned lady, grabbing Midoriya by his shoulder and pulling him closer. Besides, she then turned around, pushing Midoriya's head slightly down and over her shoulder so was directly looking at her behind. There's always the aesthetic benefits, don't you think? Midoriya was speechless for a few seconds. He had to admit Maruko looked amazing from that angle, but he whacked his brain to banish those impure thoughts. That part of him was only to be directed at the girls he loved, and only when prompted. Aside from that, Midoriya carried on the lessons of his mother about how to be respectful toward women. However, the strong blush in his face was par for the course, even more considering the ongoing teasing inside his head. See? I told you, Battle Bunny. And not now, Nana-san. The last days had been quite good, despite the house arrest. Since their secret was out, he got to openly spend more time with the girls, doing normal stuff, but mostly studying since they would need to make a major catch-up in subjects from school. However, to be honest, he was starting to miss the intimacy with his ladies. It wasn't an uncontrollable urge, but let's say he got used to a certain pace, and now he was kind of missing it. Sure, the lack of sec until exhaustion was good on its own, but the lack of sec altogether was starting to get to him. Again, not enough to make him uncomfortable, but enough to make him consider Maruko's, assets. Anyway, he broke from his inner world at the sound of loud laughter. Maruko was at it again, slapping his back with a little more strength than he judged necessary. Of course, she was teasing him. Ha 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 ha, that was a good one. You should have seen your face. But anyway, Maruko continued in a more serious tone. You gotta use every weapon you have at your disposal. Don't forget it, Deku. And with that last piece of advice, she left for the bridge, leaving Midoriya alone and completely oblivious to her true intentions. Ooh, I can't wait to have this bean sprout alone in a room with me. Then I'll show him what else I can do with my legs. As the Oki Marine crew recovered the drugs from the plane, Tatsuma, Tsuyu, and Hado came back to the ship. The dragon hero was a little tired from all that heavy lifting and Hado spent a few of her reserves, so she was less than optimal but still very bubbly. Tsuyu was just letting the adrenaline filter out of her system. The crew captured the 3 smugglers and put them tied to a barrel temporarily, but something else concerned Selkie. He looked at the pile of crates crashed to wood chips, more specifically the weird-looking shell that laid there. Is something wrong, Captain? Sirius asked him, and he took a while to answer. It was a crew of 4 smugglers. Where's the 4th one? As he said that, Tsuyu got up from her seat, walking next to the pro hero. Selkie-san, I fought the 4th one. It was a dude with some kind of mutation quirk, a mosquito, I think, ribbit. But he couldn't have just fled the ship. His wings were not that functional. I can imagine, considering this. As he said that, Selkie tossed the weird gray shell on the floor, so everyone could have a good look. Most of them cringed, Tsuyu gagged, and Hato looked mixed between disgusted and curious. Imagine a mosquito the size of a 16-year-old, but empty and proportionally disturbing. I think that person has fled the scene when we were focused on the ship. It's my fault. I got distracted for a few moments, following your situation. I saw a blur from the corner of my eye. I should have paid more attention. No, Selkie-san. I saw that guy in person and trust me, he was not capable of sustaining flight, and way uglier than this makes you think, ribbit. Perhaps, but maybe he supplanted that weakness with this. Selkie showed a broken injection with faint traces of the drug still on it. Trigger, the others said in unison. They were all using the enhancing drugs. These smugglers are not only transporting and selling, they're using them to weaponize themselves. At this rate, there will be an open war in the underworld, and people will get hurt. According to the navigation computer, this ship was going to another country, so we just prevented a lot of international problems. The air felt tense. Despite the clear skies and tranquil waters, everyone felt like a storm was approaching, especially the inheritor of One for All. Somewhere else in the city, the hardcore bros, as they decided to call themselves, followed their socially inept senpai and the pro hero, Fatgum, on a typical patrol, except for the late hours. He was waiting for a call to confirm something, and if that was proven to be true, he and the boys would have some heavy work to do tonight. So, Kirishima, I heard from Fukudashi that there will be an old school heroes event somewhere in that anime district. Don't you want to check if they got a figure of Crimson Riot or something? Tetsu told his red-haired friend with enthusiasm. I think I'll pass. I'm not a figure collector anyway, and I already have a poster of him, so I'm happy with that. Kirishima replied, then stuffed his chest and hit it with a fist. I don't like to brag, but it was signed personally by Crimson Riot. Wow, cool. Let me see it one of those days. Sure. You too. I know I said to not worry too much tonight, but we're technically on patrol duty, said the round man. He wasn't angry or anything, but these small details were part of what separated the good heroes from the great ones. Focus on the mission. H-high, both teens answered in unison, instinctively stiffening up. Perhaps it was a lasting impression from their internship with Fourth Kind. Sigh at that hour, Nejire-chan must be coming back from her joint mission. Working with an entire crew, just thinking about it gets my stomach in knots. Amikiji shuddered lightly. Despite his best efforts and the help from his loyal friends, it was still a struggle for him to socialize and interact with people. By the way, did you boys eat something before coming? I can treat you to some takoyaki. How's that? Fatgum proposed with a wide smile, which was reciprocated by a pair of sharp-toothed grins, but that would have to wait. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was the call he was expecting. Fat here, I see. We'll get there in 5. Thanks, Centipter-san. He finished the call and held a serious, determined look on his face. Yosh, let's go, boys. We got ourselves a mission. The young heroes nodded, with equally serious looks. Not far from their location was a closed-up warehouse. According to the info Fatgum received, a trade would happen tonight between gangs, possibly involving drugs. That was more than enough reason for the hero to act. Considering the groups involved, he would need some help, and thankfully he had some serious backup with the students from UA. Majiki, despite his appearance, was very reliable and a capable hero. Kirishima had already proved his resilience, and Tetsu didn't seem to fall behind. Fatgum was glad to have the opportunity of tutoring these boys, and he looked forward to working with them in the close future. The plan was simple, yet efficient. Sun Eater would get to the roof and strike from there when the opportunity appeared. Fatgum would take the back door while Red Riot and Real Steel would guard the front of the warehouse to prevent anyone from escaping. Fat has dealt with gangs from the area, and they were usually easy to deal with due to a lack of organization. It wasn't as if they were dealing with the shy Hasakai again, but some level of caution was always welcome. Better safe than sorry. Everyone was in position. Sun Eater watched from a window above, and as expected, the two gangs were meeting. He couldn't hear the conversation, but judging by the shouting and general movements, they were doing the usual banter and menacing, what these criminals would call negotiations. He gave the signal and Fatgum prepared to crash into the party, cracking knuckles and rolling shoulders. Fatgum kicked the door down and barged in, rushing to knock anyone that was feeling bolder than usual. The two gangs turned around in surprise. They knew they were screwed up, but before anyone could think of drawing a gun or dare fight with the hero, the sidewall of the warehouse exploded, shocking everyone, including Fatgum. However, it wasn't caused by explosives. Rather, someone came right through the rather thick layer of bricks. Ha ha ha! Hey, you bunch of losers! We're here to take your drugs and your money. A voice came from the dust cloud. Ha! What do you mean I'm not supposed to tell them? They're going to be dead anyway. We don't have time to kill them all? But what if one of them is strong? It looked like the person was talking to someone. As the dust settled, Fatgum got ready to fight. He didn't know who it was, but thankfully they stated what they wanted. It wasn't unheard of rival gangs trying to steal from each other. Similarly, the gang members pulled whatever guns they had, and some activated their quirks. Somehow, the audacity of that unknown person barging in like that was enough to push back the fear of being arrested by the hero right next to them. But, looking at it again, the dust settled down to reveal a tall, dark-skinned woman with long, jet-black hair, spiky and looking like a messy lion's mane. She sported a tank top and gym shorts, and she had MMA boxing gloves, all black with red linings. Her purple eyes quickly scanned the room, zeroing on the BMI hero, prompting a wide grin to appear on her face. I guess there's only one dude here worthy of a fight. Oi, fatty, she said, licking her lips and pointing at him. You and me, let's fight. Now. Oh no, she's one of those types. He felt a little less motivated to fight, but it wasn't like he had an option. Then, something caught his attention. Right next to the tall, Amazonian woman, hiding behind her leg like a shy child, was another person. Actually, she might be a child, judging from her appearance, a 14-year-old at best. She was a stark contrast from the woman challenging him, short, with a frail-looking frame, pale skin, and a generalized tired look, complete with bags under her haze, gray eyes that matched her ash-colored short hair. She was wearing a very oversized black hoodie, and there were some strange ropes tied around her waist. This little girl that looked more like a porcelain doll tapped the Amazon's leg, getting her attention. The tall, muscular woman casually kneeled to listen, rolled her eyes in annoyance, and then grabbed the girl by the hoodie, tossing her over the shoulder like a sack of potatoes. All right, fine, let's just do this boring task as they asked. She turned to Fatgum again, pointing a finger at him. Sorry, fatty, we'll have to leave the fight for later on. I have to take the money and the drugs from these losers. Don't feel sorry. No one here is going anywhere but the prison. The little girl sort of crawled on the shoulders of the tall woman and held on to her backs, tying the ropes onto something. It was almost as if the girl was a backpack. Then she slapped the woman's head and said something else, much to the woman's annoyance. Ah, right. I'm not supposed to tell him that. Then what am I supposed to do now? The girl pointed ahead, where the criminals were. One of them held a large bag, probably full of money. The other, from the other gang, held a box, probably with the drugs inside. Ah, got it. The two of them swallowed dry. They didn't want to be at the aim of someone that came through that wall like a bulldozer. Like hell that we would just give them to you. one of the criminals said, pointing a gun at the woman. Why, yeah, go off. The others from both gangs followed suit, albeit quite shaky. Don't bother, you all can't handle me, she said, casually walking over to them, but Fatgum quickly got in her way. Like I said, no one is going anywhere with these drugs. Now. From above, a figure fell between the criminals, and in an instant, they were all immobilized by huge squid tentacles. The money bag and the crate were secured. I think I don't have to say, but Mirio insisted I have to say good one-liners, Sun Eater murmured to himself. The menu for today is seafood. The tall woman looked at the teen behind Fatgum with an unamused look. You don't look so strong. For real now, I have to take these things. I don't have time to fight seriously with you, so just move. I promise I'll come back to fight. Very polite of you, but that's not happening. Sun Eater, take these guys out. The police will arrive soon. Wait, I have to take these. She moved to stop the teen as he carried everyone out, but the round man blocked her way again. She scratched her head in annoyance, eventually frantically using both hands. I don't have time to fight you, fatty. Then you can surrender peacefully. You said something about fighting seriously before, but you won't get past me if you don't go serious. I might not look tough, but I don't go down that easily, he said with confidence. I know, I can tell. That's why. Her expression turned more somber. The woman reached for the girl on her back, who produced some sort of straw or tube from her oversized sleeve, which the tall woman put in her mouth. A red liquid came from it, and she drank. I didn't want to cheese like that. Outside the warehouse, the two first-year students were on guard, waiting for anyone to try and escape. They heard a loud noise coming from inside, but nothing happened yet. Even if something had happened, Fatgum was a pro-hero, and Amakiji Senpai was one of the big three. If there was someone who could deal with these goons, it was these two. Kirishima knew his role, to be a shield for people, and Tetsutetsu thought the same, so they were playing an important part here. No need to rush into the battle yet. You think they ran into too much trouble, Kiribro? I don't know. I guess they would have called us if that was the case. Wait, more noise. Exchanging looks, they agreed to enter. The hardening duo approached the garage door, activating their quirks. Real Steel broke the lock open and Red Riot got ready to open it. 3, 2, 1. Crash. Before they could make their move, the door was ripped open and tossed off, pushing back both teens. Out came a tall, muscular woman whom they had never seen before, and considering the situation, it had to be a villain, right? Fatgum explained how other gangs could try to hijack this deal. I guess the deal is busted then. But where are Fatgum and Senpai? Kirishima said out loud, hardening his arms, ready to fight. I don't know, but I bet whatever is inside that crate is important. Tetsutetsu focused on the crate and bag the tall woman was carrying. Speaking of which, she seemed to notice the hardening duo, who quickly separated to block her exit paths. Sigh, I don't have time for this. Listen up, you brats. I'm in a hurry now, so don't even try to get in my way. Sorry, that ain't happening. Red Riot was ready to fight her. She didn't seem as strong as Rappa, but he wasn't going to risk giving the enemy a chance. She came bursting through that door, and I'm not seeing Fatgum or Amajiki Senpai. Did she really defeat them, or is she trying to escape? Whatever the case may be, I have to stop her here. Wait for her move and counter with Red Gauntlet. TCH, piss off, brat. She made her move, but contrary to what he had anticipated, this woman was much, much faster. In a second, she bridged the distance between them and swung her arm equally as fast, backhanding Red Riot through a brick wall. Red Riot, Real Steel shouted, shocked with the scene he had just seen. He immediately went after the criminal, who spun on her heels with a downward punch, which he was lucky to catch at the last second. The floor below his feet cracked under the pressure as he fought back. Are you serious? How strong is that woman? With just one hand, Red Gauntlet, back on his feet and straight to the action. Red Riot landed a powerful punch at the woman's face, knocking her off balance for a bit. Bro, are you okay? That was a serious hit. More or less. I hardened before being hit, but even then, man, that hit too hard, said the redhead, feeling his jaw hurt. Not bad, you two. They immediately returned to fighting stances. Maybe you're not just some random brats, but I still have something else to do. The woman didn't seem fazed at all by Red Riot's punch. They knew it wouldn't be that easy. You'll have to get through both of us first, said the steel hero, punching fists together. Oh, I sure will. The woman charged at them like a bull, but then tentacles wrapped around her arms, torso, and neck. Sun Eater, both teens exclaimed, relieved to see their senpai well and in action. Red Riot, real steel, get the crate. I'll hold her back as much. Not you again, Taco Boy. Grabbing the tentacles, the tall woman pulled and spun Sun Eater around. He would crash into a wall if Fatgum didn't jump in the way, cushioning the impact. His mask was ripped and his clothes pretty battered. Did she really manage to get him into this state that quick? Gotcha! Fat and Sun Eater pulled her back, with the hero in training using more tentacles to anchor themselves as the criminal tried to break free, and she succeeded in doing so, ripping some of the tentacles constraining her. I hope you like sea urchin. The tentacles wrapped tighter around her, suddenly growing urchin spines, making it much harder and painful for her to move. But the pain didn't seem to bother her that much. If nothing, it made her even more excited. So you're full of tricks, huh? All right, let me show you one too. Health pack. Due to the fight, they didn't realize the little girl jumped off the tall woman's back. But there she was, hiding behind her partner as if she was a wall. The girl climbed on top of the woman without a single care about the dangerous spines in the way, and took that red straw thing from her large sleeves again. Again? Sun Eater, push her away. It was a little late for that. The tall woman drank that red liquid again, and in a matter of seconds tore apart the tendrils holding her, with spines and everything. Her body was full of deep cuts from the spines, and she licked her arm with a crazed looking in her eyes. It seemed she had all the intention of fighting them now, but the little girl pulled at her leg. To the hero's shock, the tall woman grabbed the shorty by the head with a vice grip, raising her to eye level. What now? The girl pointed hopelessly at the hardening duo, who just got hold of the crate. The woman snarled like a beast, jumping after them and still holding the girl like a sack of potatoes. She came crashing through like a bowling ball, striking the pins, and Kirishima landed on his back, still holding the crate. Last time I asked, boy. Pass that crate and we can fight later. If you want it so bad, he said, getting up. Red Riot placed the wooden crate behind him, firmed his foot, and opened his arms. You'll have to get through me first. And through me too, said Real Steel, taking his side. With their quirks activated, they stood like a wall in front of the criminal. All right, you better not let me down. You too, shouted the crazy woman as she licked her bleeding arms again. Her crazed look intensified, and she charged forward like a bull. And much to her surprise, her attack met a very solid defense, slowing down to a halt as the hardening duo skidded back, heels sinking on the asphalt. Then, Red Riot and Real Steel held her arms, each one of them. From this position, they couldn't punch her, but there was another option. A double headbutt hat knocked the woman back. A mostly unusual tactic, but it seemed effective. Ha! Kendo always says to use my head, but I can't believe it actually worked. I don't think that's what she meant, bro. The hardening duo fist bumped. However, they counted victory too soon. The woman got back on her feet again and dashed after them, even faster than before. They barely had time to get their defenses up before being tossed to the side by a wide swing of her arm. The tall woman was breathing heavily, veins popping and with bloodshot eyes. A wide, crazy grin crossed her mouth. She walked to the crate, picking it up and turning to the heroes who were still trying to compose themselves. You all are pretty strong, for a bunch of heroes. I'll come back later, and then we can fight for real. So don't even think of dying to rest. Napalm, or that geezer the girl on her back whispered something to her. I can't tell them our names. That's stupid. We'll fight later. The girl whispered something else. Fine, but I'll tell mine anyway. So anyway, my name is Blood Frenzy. You better remember that, heroes. We have to fight for real another time. And with that, she left, taking the drugs and the money. As the two young heroes got up, pushing away the debris of the wall they just went through, Fatgum and Sun Eater came to check on them. Real Steel, Red Riot, are you okay? Called the round man, helping his partner to stand. Sorry for not helping. I wasn't expecting her to rip all my tentacles. It takes some time to recover that amount of body mass. It's okay, senpai. We didn't do much better either, said the metal teen, rubbing his head. Oi, Kiri bro, are you alive? Ouch, that's the second wall I got through today. I hope I don't have to pay this. Well, your humor is intact, which is a good sign. That said, we might have a huge problem with this crazy woman getting away with the enhancing drugs. The hardening duo quickly got up and bowed. Sorry, Fatgum, we couldn't stop her. Oi, slow down, we got taken by surprise. Besides, she is as strong as she is crazy. Even my shock absorption was enough to cushion all the impact, he said, patting his large belly. It can be pretty annoying, but she's the type that likes to exchange punches, so there's a great chance we'll see her again, and soon. For now, let's get these gang members jailed and think of the next step. Both teens nodded and followed the pro hero and their senpai, as the police arrived to arrest the gang members present. Before Blood Frenzy came bursting through the garage door, Amajiki managed to take them down. However, as soon as the woman drank that red thing, she blitzed through Fatgum with a flurry of punches and would have done the same to Sun Eater if the hero didn't literally get in front of her. While trying to prevent anyone from escaping, Sun Eater ended up losing the money back and crate to the villain. Man, I can't believe we got steamrolled like that, Tetsu said, rolling a sore shoulder. Yeah, she was really strong, but we'll get her next time, Tetsu bro. You can count on that, bro. The dark-skinned woman scratched her head, her foot tapped the floor in annoyance. They were making her sit still again. Why do we have to have this meeting right after that trip? It was an emergency call from Centipter. We asked him to look into that strange criminal activity, remember? Tatsuma explained to the white-haired woman once again. Well, why do I have to go too? Usajima said, making sure her annoyance was clear. You're free to go at any time. Just don't bother coming back later. Oh, come on, like I would let you take the lead. The lead? What are you? Oh, shut up. That has nothing to do with this. The blondie refuted. Good thing Midoriya and Hado seemed so engrossed in whatever they were talking, though it looked more like the Bluenet was spamming questions at the Emerald Teen again. The last thing she needed was to explain innuendos. Speaking of which, Rumi, drop that idea already, she said in a lower tone, almost a whisper. TCH, so you can have the way paved and free? Hell no. The rabbit hero whispered back, her eyes gleaming with the flames of competition. Stop it, it's sick. Oh please, let's not pretend we don't know what Nimiri did to him behind four walls. And your excuse for making the same mistakes is? Tell me you are not curious about why Nimiri decided to settle down with a 16-year-old. Well, I'm not. In fact, I'll make sure this madness stops. Prude. I'm not a prude, I have common sense and decency. Prude. Tatsuma could feel the muscles in her face pulling as she felt an awful need to snarl and bare her fangs at the white-haired rabbit next to her, but she decided against it. Instead, she decided to focus on her two temporary sidekicks, which brought a sense of tranquility to her. She really loved kids. Once they arrived at Night Eye Agency, The group met with a couple of familiar faces, especially for the students. "Hello, Midoriya-san. Good to see you again." Bubble Girl greeted them. "Ah, Bubble Girl and Kirishima-kun and Tetsutetsu-kun." "Yo, Midoriya, they called you too, bro?" Kirishima seemed equally surprised. "Tamaki, what a surprise seeing you here," said the brunette as she immediately invaded Amajiki's personal space. "You seem a little tired, Nejire-chan," he said in a low tone, as usual. "You noticed? But you don't seem that well yourself either, Tamaki. Did you eat spoiled food again? Does your tummy hurt? Want some fruit salt?" "I'm good, just a little exhausted. I suppose you're feeling the same. I know you guys want to chat a little, but we are kind of in a hurry, so please follow me," Bubble Girl said, leading the group of teens and pro-heroes. They met with Centipter, who was already accompanied by Fatcom, Gang Orca, and 2 more students from UA, Gyro and Shoji. "Midori, you too?" she said, surprised to see her boyfriend here of all places. Sure, she was surprised to see the others, but in her brain, Midoriya took priority. "It seems everyone is present now. Well then, I'll try to make it as brief as possible." The focus was all on the man with the long neck now. 3 weeks ago, Rukyu informed us of some unusual activity. At first, it seemed to be simple low-level criminals, and I thought that was the case too until that happened. He showed an image taken from the fight between Deku and Rikyu against Napalm. "Hey, you fought that dude, didn't you, Midoriya?" Tetsutetsu asked him, and Midoriya nodded. It wasn't clear at first, but something that the villain said during the fight caught my attention, and then I went to confirm it in the other cases. All of them followed a similar pattern of speech, which could mean... It could mean that these thugs are all part of a single gang. Centipter and I went to investigate and Bubble Girl stopped once she felt the man's gaze upon her. "Sorry." As she was saying, our investigation uncovered a new cell information. They don't seem to have any connections in the underworld, so it is completely new. A new emerging group? Do we know what they're after? Groups like that usually have some kind of goal, right? Rukyu inquired, also turning to Fatcom for possible answers. "We can only make suppositions for now, but it seems like they're planning something quite elaborate, given the 3 events of today." 3 events? Yes. The smugglers your team helped to apprehend is one. Fatcom attempted to intercept a deal between gangs tonight, and lastly, he motioned to Gang Orca. Earphone Jack and Tentacle might have crossed paths with members of that gang, he said, pointing to the 2, who took a step forward. Midoriya immediately tensed up, fearing that Kyoka could have possibly met Napalm. "Well, we just crossed paths. Shoji-kun and I were just scanning the area when we picked up an alarm nearby. We went there to check and found 2 thieves stealing an electronics shop. We tried to fight them, but it didn't go very well, and they escaped," Gyro explained. "Could you describe them, Gyro-chan?" Bubble Girl asked. They didn't look much older than us. One of them had weird gothic Lolita get-up, with face paint and everything, so I can't really tell how she looks. The other girl had short purple hair and, how do I put it? She looked like a punk. "That wasn't the kind of description I was hoping for," Centipter admitted. "Sorry about that. It was dark, and we didn't have much of a chance to get anything from them. Plus, the fight was pretty intense." "What do you mean, Gyro-san?" Rukyu asked. "If these 2 were from the same gang as Napalm, there was a good chance they could cause as much trouble, even more to heroes like Earphone Jack and Tentacle, who were not driven to combat for starters." "This time," Shoji answered. "It wasn't anything serious, but quite terrifying. When we arrived, the shop had a broken door. We came in fast and found the culprits, but they had a hostage. It was the owner, and they somehow were controlling him like a puppet," explained the tall teen. "Yeah, just remembering gives me a chill. The man was asking us to stop him." Gyro had a slightly somber look in her eyes, but she pushed these feelings aside. Now wasn't the moment. How did they escape? Centipter asked them. By using the hostage against us. We couldn't attack without harming him, Shoji answered. And what did they steal? Mainly cameras and cables. Maruko clicked her tongue. All that talk and no action was starting to really get on her nerves. TCH, what are they planning? A movie? There's something else, Gyro said, getting everyone's attention again. Shoji-kun pinned the shop owner down and I tried to go after them, without much success, but I got to hear some of what they were saying before they got out of my range. Apparently, they're hiding somewhere around the industrial district. They mentioned a warehouse. It wouldn't be far from where that crazy woman appeared, right, Kiri bro? Tetsutetsu nudged his red-haired partner. Correct. I believe these events are all correlated, and my supposition is... Centipter placed a paper slip on the table. It had the drawing of a drop of blood, with a jagged pattern crossing it. A new group has formed in the underworld, composed of those low-level criminals. Until then we counted on the fact that they can't do much all by themselves, but when in numbers, they can cause more problems. I think I don't have to explain how our forces are spread thin, right? Everyone nodded in agreement, and Maruko decided to speak her mind. So it's just a bunch of losers banding together. What are we waiting for? Then, let's kick some butt. Information. Bubble Girl stepped in. They might be small fish to you, Maruko-san, but they just got access to drug enhancers, and by the fight against this napalm guy, they also have support gear. Plus, we don't know how many there are, and there are some really dangerous ones. Punk Rock over there said they're in the industrial district, right? Let's go there and drag them out of their holes. That won't work, Maruko-san. If we show up like that, they'll just hide even more. Fatgum explained. What do we know about them now? Not much, just that they recruit some problematic individuals, probably promising power. They seem to have a supply of trigger and equipment to arm the small fishes. As for the ones you guys encountered, we're assuming they're all high ranks in the group. Do they have a name or something? Gang Orca questioned the blue girl. Yes, apparently, she said, flipping over the paper slip. They call themselves Hemorrhage. The image on the back of the paper instilled a certain sense of dread in everyone present. It was just a silhouette, but it had a disturbing resemblance to someone who was currently imprisoned. The hero killer, Stain. This doesn't look good, Kirishima thought out loud. No, it doesn't. The public opinion is not the best right now, and the last thing we need is some kind of cult of personality trying to follow the steps of an avenging lunatic. Centipter concluded. So, since you already have some level of involvement, I'm asking for your assistance in this conjoint operation. As soon as we have more info, we'll go after them. We must be proactive in this case. Everyone agreed without thinking twice. For the time being, Gyro and Shoji would help to locate the hideout, while the other two pro-heroes would lead their respective teams when the time arrived. Team Dragon, Team Shield, and Centipter contacted the cats for support, in case things went south with the number of enemies. With this meeting finished, the pros escorted the students back to UA, since it was pretty late already. In the way, the young heroes exchanged some info about what had happened to them so far. It was during the chat that Midoriya noticed a cut on Gyro's face. Gyro-chan, how did that happen? He asked while gently holding her face, getting close to her by instinct. She had to nudge him to remind him that not everyone around was aware of their situation. If only she knew. That. One of the villains tossed knives at us, the punk one. Shoji-kun protected me. This is just a scratch, she said, placing a finger on top of the thin red line. It was pretty shallow, but a little more to the side, and she could have lost an eye. I see, thanks, Shoji-kun. There's no need to apologize, Midoriya. It's what we do, right? He knew all too well that being a hero involved a lot of risks, and at no moment Midoriya doubted her capacity, but deep down he couldn't help but worry about her safety. Was this sensation what his mom felt whenever he was out making dangerous stuff? On the other side, Hado bombarded Amajiki, Kirishima, and Tetsutetsu with questions about how they worked together, along with some embarrassing facts about her raven-haired friend, all in good heart, of course. As Midoriya got distracted with them, Shoji got a little closer to Gyro. One of his arms manifested a mouth and whispered to her, "PTSS, shouldn't you tell everyone about that other thing? Or at least Midoriya?" He noticed Gyro tensing up. "It's okay if you don't want to talk. I am just curious." I don't want to worry him. Plus, we all appeared on TV at least once. They could have learned that from the sports festival or something. She replayed that sequence in her head. Under their control, the shop owner tried to attack them, which wasn't effective but prevented them from getting to the criminals. Gyro wanted to blast them with her sound waves, but the place was too narrow for that, and she might have hit her friend and the hostage. This, of course, didn't stop the villains from attacking. "Hey, aren't they from that school? The same school with that green-haired boy?" the Gothic one said out loud. Upon hearing that, Gyro sort of froze in place for a second. "It doesn't matter if they are or not, let's just get out now," said the punk one, tossing knives at them, and they would have hit Gyro if Shoji didn't pull her back right on time. The tall teen covered her with a couple of his arms and pinned down the hostage. Gyro noticed the cut on her cheek, realizing that minor slip could have been fatal. But a green-haired boy? It couldn't be Izuku, right? There must be other green-haired boys in other schools. That was what she thought until she heard the punk girl say something before they escaped through the back door. "So his name is Izuku, huh?" She immediately got up and ran after them, but the hostage trashed around and held her by the ankle. It took a few seconds for her to get free, but it was all the thieves needed. Once outside, Gyro tried to locate them by listening to the vibrations of their steps through the floor, but all she could get was a general direction and the end of their talk. It could be a coincidence. She hoped it was a coincidence, but given the situation, she thought now was not the time to worry about it, even if her heart had other plans. The next few days were filled with expectations from the young heroes, in part due to this operation, but also because the house arrest was coming to an end soon, which meant a lot of catching up to. Hopefully, their independent studies would help even things out, but one could never be too sure with what Aizawa-sensei would ask from his students. Let there be known that other more, harsh methods could be used, at least in his opinion. Today wasn't one of his workdays at Rukyu's agency, so Midoriya found himself in the common room, unusually empty and quiet for an afternoon, taking care of Iri. She was watching some children's TV show and his job was basically to explain the things that she didn't understand, which was a lot, to be honest. Nevertheless, Midoriya felt happy, for she was smiling a lot more, and she looked so enthusiastic about learning new things and exploring a world that had been denied to her before. He felt grateful, and a little proud for being part of this change in her life. Then, the door opened, and inside came the former #1 hero. "Ah, All Might," Midoriya said. No matter how much time has passed or the current circumstances, he was still a huge fan of the retired hero. "Hello, young Midoriya, and hello to you too, little Iri." The skeletal man greeted them, and Iri responded with a bright smile and a wave, quickly focusing on her cartoons again. Guessing it had something to do with him, Midoriya gently took Iri out of his lap and let her sit on the couch to go talk outside with All Might. "So, how have you been doing, young man?" "Fine, I guess. A little anxious about that situation with this new group we discovered, but generally fine." "I heard something about that. They have assembled a good team, don't worry more than necessary." The blonde man assured him, and Midoriya nodded in agreement. "I think you came for something other than just checking on me, though." "You would be correct." Toshinori then pulled a notebook, not too different from the many the Emerald Child had filled with annotations of heroes during his life. "I'm still working on it, but I found info on some of the previous inheritors of One for All," he said, handing the now surprised teen the book. The previous inheritors, Midoriya repeated as he skimmed the pages. It's not as detailed as you would do, but it is a start, I guess. Considering you awakened the Black Whip, it is only a matter of time before the other quirks manifest, including my sensei's. That last bit got Midoriya's attention in particular. He realized he never asked Nana about her quirk before. I'm still looking into the previous inheritors, but for now, let's focus on training your other quirks. Eh? But I haven't awakened any others yet. Not now, but you might in the future, and I believe it will be sooner than we expect. A quirk is an extension of you, of your body, and the more familiar you're with it, the better you can use it. So what we'll do is train your body and mind to situations where you can make use of the powers of the previous inheritors. All Might explained. Even with his frail appearance, his eyes still had that bright flame burning within. He wasn't done yet. There were things he still had to do. Understood. I'll do my best. Midoriya said with a new wind of confidence. I'm sure you will. Ah, that's right. Your house arrest is close to being lifted, so also make sure to catch up on the subjects you lost. Hey, even though I'm not very confident about that, this was almost a separate problem on its own. And, how are things with your, are your classmates okay? And here comes the awkward questions. Yeah, we're doing fine. I'm doing fine. That is, not that they're not. In fact, we're not doing it a lot. I mean... The scrawny man couldn't help but laugh at his successor's difficulty to form sentences. While quirkless, Toshinori considered himself good with words. He sure became popular after his debut in America, but now was not the time for that story. Regardless, hearing the laugh of his mentor did put Midoriya at ease. Relax, young Midoriya. As I said, I won't judge you for that. I just wanted to know if there were any problems. However, I'll take the opportunity to remind you, there's a great weight on your shoulders as the inheritor of One for All, and great danger lies ahead. Every decision you make has to take those who you care about into consideration. Midoriya nodded, showing his determined look and glancing at his hands. It has become an unconscious action, but it did help to remind him of his mission and worked as a way to steel his resolve. He looked at the scars on his hands and arms, a reminder that he had to be stronger and go beyond to save everyone. I want to tell them everything one day, All Might, but now is not the time, is it? In the end, only you can decide that, young Midoriya. Whatever decision you make, I'll be there to support you. The teacher assured his student. Well then, I will be going now. I don't want to keep Eri away from your sight when you're looking after her. Hi, see you later, All Might, he said, getting back inside the dorms. Ah, I remembered another thing, the blond man called. I'll have a visit from an old friend, although the stay will be too long to call it a visit. And who would it be? Midoriya asked, curiosity getting the best of him. It's my old friend Dave. You remember him, right? David Shield from my island. That's right. And Melissa is coming with him, so I was hoping you could help her to get acclimated. Oh, sure, I guess. And with that the skeletal figure went on his way, leaving a slightly shocked Midoriya alone. As he went back inside, he remembered the event that unfolded during his visit to Island. He wondered if everything would be fine with him seeing Melissa again. Not that he had any ulterior motives or anything. The sun was lazily going down, painting the sky with yellow and orange hues. Maybe he should make something for him and Eri to eat. Can I make anything with apples? No. Deku, Eri called him, jumping on the couch as she waved her arms. Eri-chan, don't jump on the sofa, you can get hurt. But Deku, look, the TV, she said, pointing at the large screen. Until a few minutes ago, it was on a channel with anime for kids. Now it was full of static. Weird, I have never seen that happening for real. The static suddenly ended, giving place to a still image, a drop colored in bright red, with a jagged pattern crossing it on a black background. Are you kidding? The image changed to a poorly lit gray room, with a figure in the center. It sat in a large chair that looked more like a throne of metal, with many cables around it, attached to this person. If he was seeing things right, this person was connected to a scary amount of life support equipment. But that wasn't the most important. The central figure was joined by 7 more, all clad in black clothes with red streaks and details. One of them, the tall, dark-skinned woman, carrying the girl in a large hoodie under her arm, like luggage. The gothic Lolita and the punk rock girl, the ugly guy vaguely resembling an insect. Taking the front, a guy with spiky black hair, wearing a tattered red scarf around his neck. The sleeveless shirt exposed the tubes coming from his arms and into gauntlets that resembled tiny cannons. To his side, a more mysterious figure, wearing a similar red sash that wrapped and covered the head, neck, and shoulders, leaving only the eyes to show. This person began to speak. Hero. A name, a position, an ideal. In our society, we see and hear of many heroes every day, so much that the word almost loses its meaning. He began, with a solemn tone. That in itself is a crime. Heroes are beacons of hope. They must bring light to others, free them of their fears, but they have fallen into the darkness. Our society based on heroes is rotten to the very core. Greed is the motivation of these fake idols. Fame is what they pursue, a selfish scourge that leeches on the people they're supposed to protect, but no more. The camera zoomed out to reveal many more people around them, dozens of thugs, a good deal of them equipped with support gear. This rot and corruption shall stand no more. We follow the steps of the one who first saw through the lies and the smokescreen. He who took upon him the monumental mission of dethroning the illegitimate heroes, Stain. The camera zoomed out more, showing more and more people. The numbers were easily 100 low-level criminals, all united under the same banner. Tonight, we continue his work. Tonight, we shall bleed out the impurities, and the next night, and the next night, and the next, until all the scourge has been expunged, all the rotten flesh has been burned. Only then our society will have a chance to heal, a society of righteous heroes and virtue. The bloodletting begins now. As the masked man finished, the image changed to an image of Stain, taken when he was put into Tartarus. He knew that man couldn't possibly escape from there on his own, but even being strapped in a straitjacket, he still held a determined look, the face of someone who would kill to see their goals realized. And Midoriya knew from personal experience that it was a literal statement. Accompanying the quite terrifying image, someone narrated some kind of manifesto, adding to the idea that it was some kind of uprising movement. The green teen didn't have any doubts most of the criminals involved only wanted a chance to wreck stuff. But the real danger was those who committed to this crazy cause. An entire group of people willing to go as far as Stain went was a scary thought. And pretty effective, at least on Ere. The poor girl held tight to her temporary guardian's arm. She was clearly scared, and perhaps this brought up some unpleasant memories from the past, which was all the more reason for him to go out there and stop them. His phone rang. It was a message from Ryukyu, alerting him to meet her and the others at Sir Nightai's agency as soon as possible. Deku. He quickly kneeled and petted her head, trying to calm her down a bit. Don't worry, Iri-chan, I'll make sure no one gets hurt by them. It's going to be okay, all right? She silently nodded, with an apprehensive face still. Now, what should he do? He had to pick his hero costume, and probably meet with Nejier-senpai at the entrance. Maybe they could ask Aizawa-sensei for a ride or... Stainy-san? Midoriya looked up, surprised by the sudden voice. Himiko was just standing there, watching the screen. For how long was she there? He got so focused on the TV that he didn't notice her arrival. Himiko, if you're thinking of going out there, you can forget. Izuku. She cut him dryly, focusing intently on the screen. She didn't sound like her usual gleeful self. You know I love guys covered in blood, right? That's why I fell in love with you. But there are other things I love. I want to have an easier life, do things I love. She then turned her head to face him. Her wide smile was nowhere to be seen. being replaced by a neutral yet unsettling expression. These guys, they're going to make things complicated, and I don't like that. Why should I bother doing something I don't like? It took him a moment to regain his composure. Why are you telling me this? They're going to cause trouble, and you and the heroes will go after them. I want to be with you, but I can't go with you. Plus, I don't want to fight this stupid cult, even if they think they're working for Staney-san. And? Nothing. I just don't want you to think I'll follow them or anything. I like to see people bleed, but everyone is very stingy and wants to keep the blood inside at all times, so they hate me because of what I like. But that doesn't really matter anymore. And why is that? Because her wide-fanged grin returned, and her yellow eyes seemed to shine with excitement. I have found something I love so much more, she said, giggling. Once again, Midoriya had to take some time to process this. Had it been under other circumstances, like Himiko not being a villain and a serial killer, and her passion not being making people bleed, it would be a pretty sweet confession. So go get them. Tiger, I know you can beat these posers, even more with the help of your hero friends. But before you go, can I ask you something? He raised an eyebrow and took a step back when Himiko skipped from where she was across the common room and stopped right in front of him, leaning forward and invading his personal space. What? Can I have some of your blood again? Pretty please. No. But Izuku? It's been so long. Come on, please. I'm not your personal blood bank. It's just a little, one tiny bite and a little suck. I promise. Get lost. Eri watched with a curious face as Himiko and Midoriya walked in circles, with the blondie clinging to his arm while the emerald child pushed her face. It's just a little peck, please. I have been behaving myself recently. Don't you think I deserve a treat? Are you a dog now? No. She leaned in very close to his face. But I would totally let you make me your bitch. Midoriya not only got a blush crossing his cheeks, but his mouth was also agape in an O shape. She couldn't just go around saying these things in front of Eri, so he immediately covered her mouth before she could say any more perverted things. The last thing the little girl needed was bad examples. Eri-chan, can you please go to your room? Midoriya said as he held Himiko in place, who was trying to hug him. Eri hesitated a little, but she nodded and went upstairs. As she left, he let out a relieved sigh, followed by a fierce state at the person clinging to him. Himiko, right now is really not the time. This is a serious matter, he said with a stern tone. I know, and I want you to go already so you can come back faster. But please, just one bite. I promise I won't pester you about it for the next month. Once again, Midoriya sensed this would only drag itself if she didn't get what she wanted. He could activate the security level for being nearby and touching him, but somewhere down the line, she would try again. In fact, he was pretty sure Himiko would ask him constantly until he said yes because she was just that stubborn and annoying. Sigh, I don't have time for this. Make it quick. Really? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Izuku, she said, jumping like a hyped kid about to go on an amusement park ride. Don't thank me. Seriously, stop that. Now, let's get this over with. I'm sure someone will come to take care of Eri-chan. You know, I could do that. It's not like I'm busy right now. No way in hell I'm letting you be alone with her. Voice command, Midoriya Izuku. Restriction 0. The collar blipped and opened, hanging a little more loosely around her neck, which felt a little sore. Contrary to what everyone may think, I'm not a horrible monster, Izuku dear. I actually love kids, but not in the way I like blood. He stared at her in the eye for a second, as if he was trying to make her soul combust. In the end, he slowly inclined his head, exposing his neck a little. No, the other side. I don't want to mark the other side of your neck. At least not now. Rolling his eyes, Midoriya did as she said. Himiko carefully pushed the collar of his shirt aside to better expose his skin. Her hot breath hit his skin, but there wasn't the temperature contrast of the last time they did this. Himiko hovered her fangs above his neck and took a bite, sinking her sharp fangs where the last bite left some very faint marks. And then he felt her sucking at his neck, followed by a weird lick over the fresh wound. There, it wasn't that bad, was it? He didn't respond, only glaring daggers at her. Or maybe it was. Well, thanks anyway, Izuku. Please lock this thing back on my neck before Aizawa-sensei arrives here or something. Midoriya didn't waste time, setting it back to level 2. Due to her decent behavior, Aizawa decided to lower her restrictions to a level that wouldn't turn her into French fries if she bumped into someone or tried to hug them. With that, Midoriya took a few steps back, while Himiko followed him with her eyes. Suddenly, the entrance door swung up, and none other than the scruffy man appeared. He met eyes with Midoriya and pointed outside, from where he came. You, out now. Hi, Iri-chan is in her room. Midoriya rushed outside, leaving Aizawa to take care of things here. On his way, he met with Hado-senpai. Both students made haste to get ready for action. Chances are everyone who was on the hero work study would be involved. They didn't know their exact numbers. There was the chance of panic spreading on streets among civilians due to that broadcast. Not to mention the contents of that message, a direct attack against the reputation of pro-heroes. If they wanted to keep the public opinion positive, they would need to deal with this situation as efficiently as possible. As the night fell, Midoriya and Hado arrived at the meeting point with Ryukyu, Maruko, and the other heroes. Yahoo! Let's go, bloodletting. Dozens and dozens of thugs shouted as they ran in the night across the streets, vandalizing and breaking stuff. Do you know what that means? Hell if I know, but I'm not asking questions as long as I can have more of this, one of the small fish criminals said to the others, showing off what looked like an arm cannon with 2 transparent round tanks, full of a clear liquid with tiny bubbles. He then pointed it at a nearby car, and after a few seconds of charging, the arm cannon shot a high-pressure jet that tore off the car's door. Haha, my carbonated water isn't so pathetic now, right? Who's laughing now, huh? Dude, just call it soda pop like everyone else. Shut up. With that high-tech stuff and this trigger shit, I'm practically unstoppable. I want to see anyone call me a small fry again. Come on, bring me a hero. I'm gonna peel off their skins. Who? Interesting. Yosh, challenge accepted. Appearing out of the blue, a white-haired woman with tan skin and ruby-red eyes stood behind them, hands resting on her wide hips, tapping the street floor with one foot. Her cheeky grin was certainly feared by a lot of villains since it was one of the last things they saw before being locked up in jail. Maruko? They shouted and immediately retreated upon seeing the rabbit hero. The one and only. So, you guys have a lot of power-ups now, huh? Good. Maybe I'll get a nice warm-up of you, she said, already stretching her legs. The thug who was bragging held her at gunpoint, although his knees didn't hold the same confidence of his previous boasting. You BB bitch, I'll literally take off your skin. You're free to try. In fact, I suggest you do so before I finish stretching, she replied calmly, currently sitting on the floor, touching her toes. Don't mess with us, we're armed, and we have a shit ton of trigger, and we're 4. You might want to count again, she said, pointing behind him as she stretched her arms up. To nobody's surprise but the deluded criminal, he was left completely alone. His so-called partners had fled the moment they saw Maruko's trademark grin, accompanied by that fierce glare that meant trouble to anyone on the wrong side of the law. So, about that threat, she finished her initial stretching. Time to warm up. Let's see if the puppy has teeth. Holding a fighting stance with one knee raised, she taunted the shaking opponent. F you, the poor man shouted, firing the arm cannon at the rabbit hero, who effortlessly dodged by leaping in the air. Maruko landed with her feet together behind him, as if she was at the Olympics, and before the guy could completely turn around, he was met with a heel to the face that sent him down, unconscious. Ah, I knew it. All bark and no bite. She joked, shaking her head. However, her face became serious as she looked at the piece of equipment the lowly criminal possessed, and at the injections full of the dangerous quirk-enhancing drug. How did all of you small fish get your hands on this stuff? She thought out loud, before looking ahead to where the others ran to. Well, I'm sure they will fill me in all the details whether I care or not. And off Maruko went back to Sir Night Eye's agency, kicking the occasional criminals causing trouble on her way. All across the city criminals broke out, causing general chaos. With that transmission going on, it was easy to tell who was behind this. However, the population quickly went into a panic state, so it was the hero's first job to make sure everyone was safe and tranquilized. Easier said than done. Tusk, they acted out of nowhere, she said, looking down at the streets as she flew to the meeting point. Ryukyu, in her dragon form, dealt with some thugs on her way to group with her team, but the priority was to stop the ones leading this rioting. Thanks to Earphone Jack and Tentacle, they had a good idea of where the villains were hiding, so it would be easier to deal with them. From what she could tell, more heroes were engaging and dealing with the lesser threats, which facilitated their task by a great margin. Time was of the essence in this mission, because the longer they took to solve this, the more chaotic the situation could become, not to mention how fragile the hero's image was in the public eye recently. And with the kind of speech that the masked villain did, the dragon hero thought it was made on purpose to cause even more damage. As she landed in front of the building, she met with Bubble Girl and Centipter, who was apparently waiting for her arrival. Ryukyu-san, glad to see you. The brunette greeted her. What is the current situation and plan of action? Ryukyu said back, changing into her human form. Multiple attacks all over the city, as you probably saw from the sky. Heroes are deploying to deal with them, but the leaders of the group haven't been spotted yet. Centipter said, then gave her a small comlink. They caught us by surprise, but the plan remains, for now, to raid the supposed location of the hideout and stop them. We'll be monitoring the teams while you go after them, so if the situation changes, we'll let you know. Got it. Did you contact Midoriya and Nejire already? Ryukyu-san. As if summoned by her question, the two young heroes ran up to her, ready in their costumes and everything. Midoriya, Nejire, you two came fast, she said with a hint of surprise. All Might gave us a ride, the Emerald Teen explained. Are we still following the original plan? Yes, Fatcom and his team will meet us there. Now let's hurry, she said, changing back into dragon form and allowing the two teens to climb on her back. But before she could take off, another figure arrived. Oi, did you plan to just leave me behind? The rabbit hero landed on the street. Maruko, you're almost late. Oh, come on, I even made a detour to deal with some small fries. Plus, she cracked her knuckles in excitement with a huge grin across her face. I wouldn't miss a party like this for nothing. At another location, Fatcom and his team were already on the move. Like the other heroes, they were dealing with some thugs causing trouble on the way, but their main focus was reaching the target destination. Sun Eater, just focus on incapacitating them. The same goes for you too, said the round yellow man as he knocked the wind out of a criminal with a hammerhead. Luckily, the majority of the enemies were not that worrisome about their danger level, relying mostly on their numbers. The main problem was that this was such a disorganized mess that it was hard to predict what they would do and contain them effectively, and the extra gear and enhancing drugs only made them more problematic to deal with. Fatcom wouldn't be surprised if every hero and student under them were mobilized to deal with this. The enemy surely gathered a great number of people, which wasn't really a surprise. A lot of people were less than happy with their current lives, and some would definitely take on any opportunity to change that. And there always are those that simply want to wreak havoc and see things around them burning. What really worried the hero was the idea that something like this happening would encourage more of the last type to act upon their desires. But more worrisome than that, as they cleared another street and pressed forward, an obstacle appeared in their way. A tall obstacle that they were already familiar with. Ah, it's the fatty hero and the two tough kiddos, and that Octo boy too. The heroes instantly took battle stances as Blood Frenzy announced her arrival. I knew going ahead would be better. Yash, our real fight is starting now. Blood Frenzy was ready to jump at them, but she was stopped by a young lady dressed in punk rock style right next to her. Hey, where do you think you're going? I already came with you because they asked me to keep an eye on you. Now follow the plan. Did they? Too bad. I'm fighting those guys right now. Ha 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 ha, said the tall, tanned woman, leaping in the air and crashing where Fatgum was just a second before. You again. Ha ha, you're pretty fast for someone so large. Fatty, she said, immediately rushing after him, throwing punches while Fatgum remained on the defensive. What's up with the running? I know you can tank my punches with that fluffy belly. Maybe I don't feel like being your punching bag, Fat said back, doing his best to lure her more. He gave a glance to Sun Eater, who nodded and started to move, taking another path around the street they were fighting. Suddenly, a sharp object cut through the air and his arm, though it was just a shallow cut. Looking at the direction where it came from, the rocker girl held all sorts of sharp throwable objects, from daggers to shurikens. She didn't look physically strong like her partner, and judging by the number of weapons she carried, her quirk probably wasn't something made for attack, though it was an educated guess. However, being one of the main villains involved in the group behind this chaos, Sun Eater decided to neutralize her first, then head to the hideout location. It wouldn't take him much longer, he estimated, and this would leave the way free for Red Riot and Real Steel to go ahead and meet with Rukyu's team. Raising his hand, the raven-haired teen was ready to quickly ensnare the girl with his tentacles. The menu for today is... Not so fast, Taco Boy. Oi, muscle brain, this one is distracting you, she shouted to the muscular woman, also taking more distance between her and Sun Eater. What was that? Leech? Blood Frenzy turned her head around, still throwing punches at Fatgum. I said, this hero is distracting you so the others can pass through, you idiot. Blood Frenzy held a shocked face, looking back at Fatgum as if she was hurt or something. You conniving son of a bitch, you almost tricked me. And just like that, she leaped again, this time crashing right in front of Red Riot and Real Steel, who had just taken care of some common criminals. No one is quitting before we throw hands, understood? Taken by surprise, the two young heroes only had time to harden themselves before they got hit by an arm swing that tossed them into the air and near where Fatgum was. Meanwhile, Sun Eater was slowly forced to stop by the girl, apparently called Leech, as she tossed more knives at him. They were easy to block with a clamshell, but he was more worried about this girl figuring out their plan of action so quickly. With Fatgum here, they could deal with brute force alone, but the enemy knowing about their plan would be another advantage for them. On top of acting first, he should prioritize dealing with her first. Meathead, that Taco Boy is coming after me. Do your thing. Ha, but he doesn't look tough enough. Just do it already, and use health pack too. Stop wasting time, you idiot, she berated the tall woman, who begrudgingly turned her attention to Sun Eater. All right, Pipsqueak, let's make it quick. I'm gonna crush you like a little shrimp, she said, rushing at him with a fist in the air. However, when she brought it down like a hammer, she met a hard shell full of spiky thorns that pierced her hand. Ouch! What was that? She recoiled from the pain, holding her bloody hand. She still landed a solid hit, making Sun Eater recoil too, but since he saw that one coming, he managed to cushion the impact using tentacles, which also helped him keep his foot. He might not look as tough as the two hardening teens or Fatgum, but he was no pushover. The menu for today is Seafood Buffet. Taking advantage of her being distracted, Sun Eater turned his right arm into tentacles, with barnacle shells at the tips, and swung it at Blood Frenzy like a whip, knocking her back. He landed a solid hit, with enough force to shatter a few of the shells in the process, which ended up cutting the woman a bit. At the same time, Fatcom, Red Riot, and Real Steel got by his side. "Nice hit, Senpai," exclaimed the red-haired teen. "Yosh, bring it on, you all," said the metallic one. On the other side, Leech facepalmed and shook her head as her partner groaned on the floor, holding her face. "Why me? Hey, hurry up and use health pack. Assuming you didn't squash her on your back, you meathead." Blood Frenzy sat up, still holding her face. She slowly looked at her bloody hand and at the cuts on her arms. There were some shards of barnacle shells still stuck. A wide grin crossed her lips and her face was taken over by a maniacal expression. "Ha ha ha ha, guess I made another mistake. The pipsqueak is not weak at all. Man, I hit the jackpot of strong opponents." She finally got up and tapped her shoulder. "Hey, are you alive?" The heroes were surprised as a second head popped out from her back. How did they not see her there before? "Eh? That little girl from before," Red Riot said, remembering their last encounter with the tall woman, which meant things were about to get complicated. "I hate to do this in our fight, but Taco Boy over there hurt one of my eyes, and I want to see you all well after I beat you up," she said, biting the tip of a thin tube that the girl on her back offered her. The same red liquid as before flowed, and the tall muscular woman got a visible increase in muscular mass. Not only that, but the previously hurt eye was back to normal. "Meathead, hold the 3 kids for a bit, okay? I'll get the pro," Leech said, knives in hand and advancing against Fatcom. "Hey, don't steal my fights!" Blood Frenzy jumped into the attack, going after the hardening duo first. She crashed like a meteor, forcing the heroes to split. Fatcom had to avoid Leech's swift moves since his fat wouldn't be very good at preventing him from getting shanked. Meanwhile, the young heroes had to deal with the bulldozer that was Blood Frenzy, who looked even more psyched up than before. "Come on, brats, give me a good fight. Just evading won't do for me." "Then how about this? Red Gauntlet." Red Riot ducked a punch and twisted his whole body, hitting her square in the jaw. The strike made her lose her balance a bit. "Nice punch, kiddo, but you gotta put more energy on it. Like this." She swung her body back and was about to return the same move, but her fist met with a wall called Real Steel. "I got you, bro," he said, arms crossed in front of him forming a shield. "When I block, you attack, all right?" "Got it." Blood Frenzy attacked again with another straight punch, this time blocked by Red Riot, giving an opening for Real Steel to land a hit on her ribcage. Another punch from the tall woman blocked, followed by a hit on her sides. Another block and a solid hit on the guts made her take a step back. Even then, the 2 young heroes didn't like the fight they were in. "Damn, it's like I'm hitting a wall," said Red Riot, looking at the enemy with a little bit of shock. "Yeah, a wall of muscles. And it doesn't look like she's stopping any time soon," Real Steel added. "Ha ha ha ha, you kids are very fun. I like you," said the woman. She then held her arms wide open and a huge grin crossed her face. "Come on, hit me. Gimme your best shot." Both teens looked at each other and then at her as if she had grown 2 extra heads. "Come on, hit me. I don't have all night, you know?" They still looked at her as if she was crazy, rightfully so. "Oh, I get it. I'm much taller than you guys, so you can't hit me right, isn't it? Okay, I'm getting on my knees. How's that now? You can hit me right here in the jaw, see?" she said, pointing at her face, still grinning like a madwoman. Suddenly, a bunch of tentacles wrapped around her, pinning her arms back. Sun Eater snuck behind and immobilized her. "Red Riot, Real Steel, knock her out," he told them as the tendrils coiled even more around her arms. However, the hardening duo hesitated a bit. "What are you waiting for, you too?" Is this really all right?" Real Steel said. "What are you talking about? We're in the middle of a fight." "Yeah, but," Red Riot looked at the woman and then at his fists, but she cut whatever he was about to say. "Oi, Taco Boy, your turn will come later. We're in the middle of a fight here," she said, struggling against the tentacles. She managed to rip some of them, but Sun Eater just used his other hand to wrap her even more, tightening the hold. Regardless, she slowly got back on her feet and tried to kick him, which made the two young heroes jump into action again. It was particularly troubling for them to hit a woman as if she was a punching bag like she was asking for before, but the situation asked for drastic measures, so the two of them went for the attack, blitzing Blood Frenzy with alternate punches and knocking her to the floor with a double-team finisher. On the other side, Fat was still having some trouble dealing with the knife-wielding punk girl. She was pretty nimble compared to her much more muscular partner, though he used that word loosely. There was no teamwork to see between these three, which made him think about how did this group even manage to organize such a crowd. Then again, judging by the general chaos around them, it was less a question of organization and more a controlled confusion. Point the way and let the thugs break stuff in the path. Ouch! I can't get distracted with that though. Focus on the battle at hand. We have to make it to the hideout location with Ryukyu's team. Fatgum raised his fists in an offensive stance. He had to deal with this girl quickly, help the boys and proceed with the plan, but his opponent simply stopped, looking at him intensely as she held a knife up. "Meathead, playtime is over. They might know where the base is. Finish them," she shouted, running back to her technical partner. "What? Oi, where do you think you're going?" Fat went after her, but a kunai sank on the floor in front of him. It would have cut him if he didn't stop. How did she even realize that? Back to the young heroes, Sun Eater still had Blood Frenzy in a tight hold with his tentacles, which meant he didn't have a lot of room to evade when Leech jumped at him, knives in hand ready to slice his flesh. "Watch out, Senpai," Red Riot shouted, jumping in the way and swatting the blades with a hardened arm. "TCH, what a pain in the ass," Leech mumbled, trying to find a way to get around the red-haired youth, but there wasn't a simple way. And to make things worse, the other boy joined him, and the fat guy just arrived. Great! Leech was surrounded, with her partner Blood Frenzy on the floor, tied by tentacles. Two of her opponents were pretty much impervious to her blades, and she had no muscle at the time. Why did she have to go with the stupid one? "Give up, girl. You and your team of villains won't escape. We have heroes all over the city to contain this riot," Fatgum said, signaling for Sun Eater, Red Riot, and Real Steel to approach. "We might be outnumbered, but we're mostly dealing with low-level thugs. Aside from these generals, there won't be a lot of troubles, so long as we can keep the civilians safe." "Is that so?" Well, Rust already predicted that was the case, but it's good to have some confirmation. "Sai, wake up, you muscle-bound idiot," Leech shouted, kicking the fallen woman in the face, much to everyone's surprise but hers. "Oi, she's knocked out already." Red Riot was so shocked he almost went there to check if she was okay. But even more surprising, the kick actually woke up the woman. "Oh, that metal from your boots cut my lip. Great," she said, licking her lips. Blood Frenzy went wide eyes, slowly rising to a sitting position, even though Sun Eater restrained her. Leech tried to carve her out of the tentacles, but her knives were not that long to fully cut through. At the same time, the little girl that got squished between the tall woman's back and the tentacles struggled to break free, releasing one arm and bringing the red liquid straw closer to Blood Frenzy's mouth. "Hurry up and break free, you idiot. We have to get back and act." Leech had her arm twisted back and got disarmed by Fatgum, without much effort. "As I said, you're not going anywhere but a cell." He was going to pull out a pair of handcuffs, but suddenly his vision got blocked. Blood Frenzy broke one arm free and simply held his head. The pressure on his skull quickly increased, and he was forced to release Leech as he struggled against the hold. Fatgum, Red Riot, and Real Steel moved to help him, but Leech got in the way. Sun Eater still had his hands tied up, so he was vulnerable, and it would take the two of them to knock that Amazon down again. "Sorry guys," Blood Frenzy said, tearing away the tentacles around her with the order hand, apparently with much less effort. Her eyes gained a bloodshot color, her muscles bulged, and her veins were more apparent. That sick, maniacal grin appeared again. "I'll have to end this fight here." It took probably 3 seconds. She completely tore off the tentacles, spun around, still holding Fatgum in a vice grip, and flung the round man on the 3 young heroes. They hit a wall, and unfortunately, Fatgum wasn't between them to cushion the impact. "About time you took it seriously, meathead." "Shut up. I was having a hell of a good time here." "Ugh, don't you think of anything else other than fighting?" "What else should I do then?" "How about following the plan? Can you do that, or is it too much for your 3 brain cells?" The arguing was muffled to the heroes as their heads were spinning, especially Fatgum's. They didn't expect such a recovery, especially after knocking her out previously, but now it was like that never happened. In fact, she seemed much stronger than before. By the time they recomposed themselves, the heroes already lost sight of them, but they were apparently going back to their hideout. If they can track these 3, they'll have the exact location. Not wasting any more time, Fatgum and his team rushed in the direction they first met the villains, hoping to catch up to them. Above in the sky, Rukiu soared through the chaotic streets. Overall, the situation wasn't terrible, but there were many spots of problems scattered around. The messy nature of that riot made things more troublesome to deal with in terms of getting help to the right places. Hopefully, they could take down the heads behind this quickly, as she could sense the stare of the green-haired teen down at the streets. He must be wanting to go down there and help the people in need. But right now, he is needed somewhere else. She could easily relate to the feeling, as would any other hero. "We're almost at the location. Get ready," Rukiu said, flying closer to the ground. Something blinked at the corner of her vision, and then came flying in her direction, and she barely dodged, almost knocking her passengers off her back. "Hey, Rukiu, what's up with the turbulence?" Maruko asked, holding on to the fabric the best she could. Glancing at a building next to them, Nejire quickly realized what was happening, as the wall had a long splash mark of a red, steaming liquid. "Napalm!" shouted the brunette, looking down to try and locate the enemy. Another shot was fired at them, missing Rukiu by a very tiny margin. The culprit was atop a building, pointing the cannons at them. His psychotic gaze met with the heroes, but Deku in specific. Rukiu quickly descended, as having the others on her back would hinder her flight. There were no major outbreaks in that street, and the civilians already left the area, so they didn't have to worry about other interference. "So this is the dude who burned you, huh?" Maruko smirked, ready to jump after the sniper, but something caught her attention. A faint cloud surrounded them, forming a circle and increasing in speed. The dust from the floor got up and added to the cloud, building up into a thicker mass of dust and sand of a dark brown color. "The time of your judgment is close, heroes." A voice sounded from somewhere in the sandstorm. From the likes of it, it was that masked guy from the video. "Ha! Show your faces, cowards!" Maruko shouted, looking around for possible surprise attacks. "In due time, Rabbit Hero, Maruko. For now, you all shall go through the trials of blood. Only the worthy have the right to." Delaware Smash Air Force. Wiring Wave. With a single glance at each other, Deku and Nejire combined their powers to break through the sand barrier. The breach was short, but enough to let them escape easily. Ryukyu, now in her human form, looked out for the rooftops, where Napalm was previously. "Looks like that one talks a lot. Great. Now is not the time to complain, Maruko." "I know. Hey, I'm going after the idiot up there." "Wait, he's too dangerous at range." "Aw, don't worry about it," Maruko said, crouching and jumping in the air like a rocket. "That clown won't see me coming." "But I will." A buzzing sound cut through the air and Maruko felt something hit her midriff, although it was quite weak, more like a forceful push. Regardless, it messed with her jump and she was back to the ground. Another one of the captains revealed himself, an ugly mosquito-looking guy. Repent, false heroes. Holy shit, someone hit that one with the ugly stick, or rather, gave a serious beating, she said, cringing at the sight. What? Maruko, can't you be serious for 5 minutes? I can, but come on, look at that, or maybe don't. Geez, what an eyesore. Hey, I can hear you. Yeah, but I wish I didn't have to see you. Man, did you actually bump on me just now? Maruko cringed again at the thought of having physical contact with that villain. Of course, she wasn't being serious, but messing with the opponent was effective most of the time, and this guy was just too easy to not mess with. As she expected, it was very effective. BZZZZZ, death to all animal heroes. What Maruko didn't expect was for the Mosquito Man to jab himself with a rather large injection of what was clearly trigger. The mutations in place were vastly enhanced, and the change was violent. His skin tore to shreds as an inner layer of some thick, dark material came out. The bug eyes got a red, vibrant color, the antennae grew to full size, and the previously small and fragile wings grew to almost his height, which also went up with a muscle mass. The hands now had sharp claws and the vestigial arms were fully grown. The pointy nose got longer, sharper, and had some barbs on the side. Lastly, the man now sported razor-sharp teeth, constantly covered in drool. I take back what I said. Now you got a serious beating with the ugly stick, Maruko said, taking a fight stance. The Mosquito Man dashed forward at blinding speeds, almost catching Maruko off guard. She narrowly avoided the spear attack, and she had just a short time to react as she turned around, avoiding another attack. Mosquito attacked from multiple sides, increasing the rate and quickly forcing Maruko into a defensive stance. Maruko-san, Deku took a step to help her, but Ryukyu held him back. Wait, Deku. She can handle that. Let's keep going forward. Deku hesitated a little, but he ended up nodding and moving to the objective with Nejire and Ryukyu. Get back here, you dragon. Mosquito suddenly went after Ryukyu, and he would have hit her square in the chest if Nejire didn't react quickly, using a wave to deflect his trajectory. I think I remember Tsu-chan talking about that guy. But was he that strong? It must be the enhancing drugs. The effects are much scarier than I thought on mutant-type quirks. Scary? BZZ, BZZahahaha. You haven't seen Scary yet, pretty face. I'm gonna carve that smile out with my teeth. Mosquito's wings buzzed again, and he went on the offensive again. Even though they knew how this guy fought, from Tsuyu's last encounter with him, it was still difficult to keep up with the attacks. They came from all directions. The buzzing sound was pretty disorienting, and to make things worse, the sand vortex was blocking their sight again. Lastly, a jet of boiling blood hit the asphalt near them. Stay out of this, Napalm. Those two are mine. Great. The last thing I need is possessive ugly asses after me. For that comment, Maruko almost got stabbed in the abdomen, dodging by bending backward. Got him it. Maruko, can you please take this seriously? Ryukyu shouted at her, taking her dragon form to shield the two young heroes. I am taking this seriously. Watch this. Her ruby-red eyes were scanning the surroundings, waiting for a cue. Her ears twitched, detecting the source of the sound. It was quite troublesome with all that white noise and from the sand, but she managed to filter it out. She closed her eyes, and with a quick sidestep, she dodged yet another attack, this time locking an updraft kick to the villain's stomach, which sent it flying away and past the sandstorm. See? I'm totally focused here, she said, smirking at the dragon hero, who simply shook her head. We still have to deal with the sniper up on the rooftop. Don't worry, we got you covered. A voice sounded inside their heads. Mandalay, the two teens exclaimed, and surely the cat-themed hero came into the view, crossing the sandstorm with the help of a stone golem, courtesy of her partner, Pixabob. You wouldn't mind if we joined you, right? she said as the stone golem covered them right on time to block the boiling jets. We're not in a pinch yet. Maybe you should deal with the small fries rioting, the dragon hero suggested. We already cleared the area. Tora is helping the police right now, and we came because of the sudden sandstorm, Pixie Bob answered. In that case, we're heading to a possible location of their base. If we can deal with the heads behind the riot, it will subside faster. As she told them the plan, the sand vortex vanished, and they saw 3 figures on top of a cloud of sand. Napalm, who carried a shriveling mosquito, halfway between the enhanced and normal form, and a man with his head fully wrapped in red tattered bandages. Rust. Heroes. The trials you must face are yet to be revealed. Pay the price of blood and prove your worth. And just like that, the cloud of sand flew away, carrying the villains with it. Oi, where do you think you're going? Maruko quickly jumped after them, but she had to twist in midair to avoid being scalded by napalm. TCH, I hate those types. The guy thinks he's a prophet or something. These are the worst types of villains. The ones with ideals, Mandalay said, feeling the situation could get much worse if they didn't take care of it now. Do we chase them? Rukiu, Nijire asked the dragon hero. The direction they went is the same we were heading to. Chances are they are returning to the hideout. Let's follow the plan. All right, but we're going ahead, Maruko announced. Wait, we? And before the blondie could question further, the tanned woman grabbed Deku by his hand and jumped off at high speeds. Maruko. See you there, and try not to lose all the fun, she shouted with a grin on her face, leaving behind a shocked Rukiu, the 2 surprised cats, and an amused Neijire-chan. Maruko-san, we should go with the rest of the team, Deku shouted, trying to adjust himself as they crossed the air. With a little help from her, he managed to land on a wall, full cowl activated, and began to follow the rabbit hero, now pursuing the 3 villains. One of them is down already, and they're retreating to their hidey hole. We don't have time to waste. The faster we kick these clowns out of the game, the sooner this mess ends, just like Rukiu said. Besides, the one with the bandages is probably the leader, so we better deal with him first. Deku didn't show it externally, but he was quite surprised with the reasoning behind her actions. After a while, he got the impression that Maruko only acted on her intuition and was pretty impulsive, but turns out she could access the situation as well as any other pro-hero and adapt accordingly. In no time they caught up with the villains. The sand cloud wasn't particularly fast, to be honest, and they had the advantage of high mobility. This time Maruko didn't announce her charge and simply dashed after them, followed by Deku. She made an arc in the air and descended like a meteor, ready to strike them down in one kick. But a sand barrier suddenly got in her way, absorbing the impact. Not only that, it reformed around her foot, locking her in place, and she could see napalm aiming at her. Shit! Delaware Smash, Air Force. The compressed gust of wind dispersed the sand prison right on time for Maruko to avoid the scarlet stream. Landing on the floor, she dashed after them again. Every time she got close to landing a hit, a sand wall would get in the way, only to be blasted away by Deku. But they were getting closer. Maruko jumped again, and this time Deku intercepted the sand block, breaking it before it could stop her advance. The rabbit hero got in range to deal a powerful kick. Luna Arc. It misses. The sand cloud they were traveling split in half at the last second, leaving her open to attacks. Before the villains had a chance to do so, Deku used his black whip to pull her back to safety. TCH, that sand quirk is a pain in the ass to deal with. I can disperse part of the sand away, but we still have to deal with napalm. Their quirks are good at range, and I don't have a lot of options for that. If we could stop that guy from controlling the sand somehow, Deku thought out loud, then began a mini mumbling spree. Something caught his attention. Water. What? She raised an eyebrow. It's just a guess, but if we can make the sand wet. That dude won't be able to control it. Gotcha. Maruko finished his line of thought and immediately searched for a source of water. Fire hydrant on the left. Gimme a boost. Using Black Whip like a slingshot, Deku spun Maruko around and launched her forward. She got ahead of the villains, using the extra momentum to kick and bend the fire hydrant enough to crack one side open. It wasn't the most precise shot, but it sprayed a lot of water around, which hit the villains and forced them to the floor. Ha, playtime is over, just give up and you won't get hurt. Much, she said, ready to kick anyone at the slightest sign of aggression. We've got you surrounded, Deku just landed, closing the other route they could take to escape. Being in the middle of the street, Rust looked at the sides, trying to find a breach, but at that stage, the odds were against him. The man calmly analyzed the two heroes, then let out a laugh. All I'm surrounded by is falsehood and soulless heroes. Rust quickly injected himself with a dose of trigger, and suddenly the wet sand raised from the floor. The brownish color in it looked more like a dark red, probably due to the water in it. Two whips of wet sand spun around, aiming to hit the two heroes. Deku tried to undo it via Delaware's Smash Air Force, but it was much more resistant now, and certainly it hurt to be hit by a moving mass of wet sand. Maruko also reacted by attacking it, resulting in her foot being stuck and receiving a full swing to her abdomen. The wet sand also wrapped around and pinned them down to the floor. It is not your time to be judged yet, heroes. Be patient and wait for your cue, like the good actors you are, said the man, as a column of sand raised him and his partners, moving away like a wave. After a while, the constraints holding the heroes down lost their integrity, just in time for the others to join them. Arg, damn it, I can't believe we lost them like that, Maruko shouted, stomping her foot on the floor. How about next time you listen to me and act like we're on the same team, said the dragon hero. How about you try to keep up with me, huh? Now is not the time for competitions, Maruko. Your reckless acting will get someone killed. Yeah, those idiots who just escaped. And how about Deku? This made her flinch. The blondie sent a death glare toward Maruko before coming to check on the green-haired teen. Are you okay, Midoriya? She asked him, checking out his body for any potential internal damage. I'm fine. Luckily, I've been through worse than that, he said with a confident face as Ryukyu helped him to get up. It's good to see your sense of humor is intact, but this is not something to brag about. You and Nejire are still students, and you are still my responsibility. When we arrive at the enemy's hideout, I don't want any of you to throw yourselves into unnecessary danger. Is that clear? Her usual caring tone had an additional layer of authority to it, like a mother speaking to her children. The young heroes understood the situation perfectly, so they could only nod and agree with Ryukyu's terms. All right, let's hurry up. We don't have any more time to lose. And with that, they resumed the chase. The rush didn't last very long. They had the villains in sight again, and they just entered a building, followed by another group of them, the tall, muscular lady, the punk girl, and the little one being carried like a handbag. Right after came Team Shield, who joined them and prepared to raid the hideout. Ryukyu, did you guys run into too much trouble? Asked Fatgum. Just the usual, let's go. Hi. Nejire-chan and Deku both launched an attack to tear down the steel garage door. Delaware Smash Air Force. Wiring Wave. Right after, Red Riot and Real Steel jumped forward, acting as shields for any surprise attacks. They waited at the start of the large, dark corridor, but nothing happened. Did they run away? Tetsutetsu wondered. This could be just a secret passage or something like that. Hey, guys, I think we should surround the place. Out of the dark came a large mass that engulfed the hardening duo. Despite their efforts, they couldn't break free from it. Shit, is that sand? Kirishima, Tetsutetsu. Deku was ready to jump after them, but Fatgum moved ahead first. I'll help them. You guys go ahead. Sun Eater, with me. As he spoke, Fatgum took a hold of the boys while Sun Eater tried to dig them out of it. but the mass pulled them into the dark, taking the pro hero and the hero in training along. This turn of events prompted Team Dragon to jump into action, rushing through the dark hallway, but as soon as they entered, something in the shadows clicked. The faint noise was only detected by Maruko's keen hearing, unfortunately, too late for her to do much. Everyone get down. In a split second, hundreds of sharp objects flew from the sides, catching them in a crossfire. Razor-sharp edges sprung from the floor, causing everyone to get cuts all over their bodies. It wasn't enough to cause dangerous bleeding, and thanks to Maruko's warning, vital areas were protected. Traps? Really? Said the tanned woman, feeling the shallow cuts on her exposed arms and legs. They had a lot of time to prepare, it seems. Ryukyu, maybe we should wait for backup? Mandalay turned to the blondie, but someone else wasn't feeling like playing the waiting game. You guys guard the door or whatever. I'm going ahead, said the rabbit hero, this time not dragging Deku as she went off. Wait, Maruko. She knew there wasn't really any way she could stop that woman. More importantly, Ryukyu knew the situation didn't give them time to spend waiting in place. Against her better judgment and her instincts, she decided to follow Maruko's pace this time. Sai, let's go. We can't afford to be separated like that. They went ahead down the dark corridor, paying attention to the sides, the floor, and the ceiling, trying to locate and avoid any more traps. Unknown to them, a figure came out of a hidden passage, right by the entrance. The mysterious figure kneeled on the floor, her fingers sliding along the sharp edges embedded on the floor, carefully picking up the needles scattered on the floor. Her lips widened into a smile as she chuckled quietly, bringing her fingertips to her mouth. How wonderful, so many dolls for me to play with. The place looked like a labyrinth. For a building of limited size, it had dozens of rooms and hallways left and right. It was clear that they modified the place, which raised a question about how much time they had to prepare for this. But that wasn't the more pressing matter at the time. The heroes had yet to find any signs of the two fiery teens and Fatgum, and something else bothered Ryukyu. We're progressing without restrictions. This is clearly a trap. But just how far do they plan to let us go before acting? Of course, she didn't voice her concerns, but if you looked closely, you could see the worry on her face. This is too easy, isn't it? The redhead running by her side quietly said, catching the blondie's attention. Ryukyu raised an eyebrow in surprise. She knew about Mandalay's telepathy, but she thought it was one way only. Ha ha ha, it's okay. After some time you don't need telepathy to know what's going on inside someone's head. She followed in a somewhat reassuring way. We're playing into their game. If things get too out of control, her eyes turned to the young heroes running ahead of her. No more words were needed. I can't say, don't worry, in a situation like this, but they'll be fine. They're capable heroes already, and besides, that's why we're here, right? Hearing this from Mandalay gave Ryukyu a sense of relief. Something about her motherly vibes inspired tranquility in her heart, along with a similar feeling. She always liked kids, and protecting them was always the first place within her mind space. Shaking away the doubts, the dragon hero focused on the task at hand again, right on time to hit a dead end. TCH, how big is this place again? Maruko complained, her ears twitching as she looked around, looking for something or anything that would allow them to continue. They sure put a lot of effort into it, Pixie Bob commented. Can't we just break the walls? We would risk compromising the structure, and we still don't know where to go. It would be a waste of energy, Ryukyu said. The hallway was kinda big, but still too constricting for her to transform. If they had to fight in that space, this would become a serious problem. I guess that means we'll go back and split. There were some stairs back there. I'm going down. Who's with me? Said the rabbit hero, already turning on her heels and moving. Pixie Bob and I will check the lower levels. Your team can check the ones above. Ryukyu, I'll keep a telepathic link with everyone. All right. Mandalay followed, along with the rest of the team, but suddenly a sense of dizziness struck her. The cat hero held her head as her vision became a little blurry and she lost her sense of balance. Looking around, she saw she wasn't the only one. "Oh, my head, what the hell is shit?" Maruko, already wobbling on her feet, was the first to notice they were surrounded. A bunch of masked people came from hidden passages on the wall. They awkwardly walked towards them, dragging their feet and with robotic motions. It was like a horror movie scene. An ambush, huh? Too bad for you idiots because it will take more than half a dozen pushovers to take down, huh? Maruko stopped mid-rant because she couldn't move her leg. Worse even, she felt it took a step forward against her will. "Oi oi oi, what the hell?" Maruko-san, Deku, who was next to her, tried to jump into action, but he also found himself unable to control his limbs. Just like the rabbit hero, his arms and legs began to move on their own, jerking as if there were strings attached to his wrists and ankles, pulling him in the direction of the thugs surrounding them. As much as he tried to fight it, he couldn't stop himself. None of them did. This must be someone's quirk. If we take them down, then... The green teen didn't conclude his thoughts as he noticed something in the criminals ambushing them. They looked like completely normal people. Usually, these criminals look pretty shady, and you get a suspicion just by looking at them. But these guys were not looking the part. Some of them had construction work uniforms, and one even sported an All Might t-shirt. And once they finally got a hold of the heroes, slowly pushing them towards the passages in the walls, Deku heard a broken call for help. "He, help us!" The look in the man's eyes was one of utter terror and despair. They are being controlled too. Whoever is behind this must have a powerful quirk. We have to discover how it works, who is in control, and target them first. He looked around as much as his body would allow, and the others seemed to realize that as well. Then, a voice spoke inside his head. "Everyone, I established the telepathic link. They're going to separate us, it seems. I think everyone understood the situation, so we have to locate and neutralize the person controlling us before anything else. Good luck to you all," said Mandalay before they were effectively separated. The doors in the walls closed behind them before everything went dark. The four of them were dragged through a long hallway full of turns left and right at high speed. The mass of sand engulfing them was densely packed and impeding the hardening duo from escaping. A light shone at the end of the dark corridor, and they were practically ejected as the sand finally dispersed. They fell for a few seconds before meeting the floor, and thanks to Fatgum's quick reaction, their fall was cushioned. "Are you guys all right?" asked the pro hero, checking the three teens currently sunk into his body. "Yeah, we're fine, but damn it, we fell for it like idiots," Real Steel said, punching the air in frustration. "Think about later, when the mission is over. Now we need to." Fatgum was by a blinding light as dozens of floodlights were turned on. As their eyes adjusted, Team S.H.I.E.L.D. noticed exactly where they were. A circular large room with tall walls and apparently no exit, except for two doorways way up high, connected by a crosswalk. Then their attention turned to a now familiar, loud laugh, followed by the sound of something heavy hitting the metal floor. Blood Frenzy just jumped down to greet them once again, accompanied by the little girl in a large hoodie, holding on to her shoulder. "Ha ha ha ha, I knew you guys would make it. Awesome, there's no one else here to bother us." Now, she rolled her elbows and bit her lower lip until it began to bleed, then licked the scarlet liquid. "Let's go all out." "I'm really getting annoyed with this lady," Red Riot muttered to himself, and Real Steel nodded in agreement. The young heroes readied for the inevitable fight, as they probably wouldn't find another way out. Skins hardened, limbs morphed into tentacles, and fists raised, they prepared for Blood Frenzy's attack. She dashed forward, once again surprisingly fast for a person of her size. Her aim was Fatgum, who tanked her straight punch without problems. Her arm sank to her elbow in the super soft body of the BMI hero, to the point she couldn't pull it out. "Here, let me help you," Fatgum shouted with a smirk on his face as he hit her square in the jaw with a punch, sending her back a few steps. She shook her head, rubbing a thumb over her lips, which now had one more cut. Licking her thumb, Blood Frenzy lunged forward again, sinking her fist into Fatgum's body, but this time following with a punch from the other side, aiming for his head. He took a step back, making her miss and locking her other arm under his, still grinning. Just as he imagined, she was so naturally strong she never bothered to learn any fighting techniques, the perfect kind of opponent to someone like him. Seeing she was locked in place, Blood Frenzy pulled her head back and headbutted Fatgum, with little effect. Her crazed grin only widened as she found resistance in pushing him in that little contest. Haha, you're stronger than you look, fatty. Sorry, it'll take more than raw strength to beat me. Ha, we'll see about that. Firming her feet on the floor, Blood Frenzy managed to lift Fatgum off the floor, slightly taking him by surprise. She spun him around 1, 2, 3, 4 times before feeling he loosened the grip on her sunk arm, and then she threw him at the young heroes like a bowling ball striking the pins. Sun Eater managed to catch him with his tentacles, making a long skid until they stopped. How strong is that woman? Said the raven-haired teen. A lot, but I can take on her without much issues. Oi, you too, watch out. Right after tossing him, the villainess went on the offensive again, but her path got blocked by the hardening duo. As Fatgum shouted, Red Riot and Real Steel did a double punch to counter the one Blood Frenzy threw at them. She was taller and more muscular, so even then they were knocked back, but so was she. I forget because you guys are kinda small near me, but you are very tough too, aren't you? Come on, show me what you got. She taunted, leaping in the air and landing between them, her fists leaving a dent on the metal floor. They split right on time and she went after Red Riot, throwing a flurry of punches at him. The red-haired teen was forced on the defensive, tanking the hits as best as he could with his arms in guard, but the pressure she was putting on him was no joke. Then, Real Steel jumped behind her, getting high enough to land a solid hit on both sides of her skull, which sent her tumbling sideways. Are you alright, Kiri bro? Yeah, but I thought she would break my arms for a moment. She's crazy strong. Then all we have to do is not let her attack. Real Steel said with a confident grin, to which Red Riot responded likewise. We're on the attack now, then. Let's go. They charged forward while she was still dizzy. Red Riot went first, using his signature move Red Gauntlet on her stomach, which blew the wind out of her. Real Steel followed with a straight to the chin, using his partner as a step to get on the same level. They kept on alternating like this, a wide kick to her sides, then a chop on her neck, followed by another gut punch and a sweep at her knees, forcing her to lean forward. Red Riot connected one knee to her chin face and Real Steel followed with a sucker punch. And to finish, they did another double team punch, hitting her square in the face. There was a sickening faint noise of cracking as the tall woman slowly tumbled on her back, squishing the poor girl still holding on to her under her muscular, heavy body. The hardening duo was breathing heavily, and they still had their guard up. Somehow they knew this wasn't nearly enough to put that crazed woman down, and they had yet to see what the other girl could do. They stared at the woman on the floor, at her blood-covered face, and even though she was still breathing, they wondered if they went too far, and in the blink of an eye, she was up, screaming and lunging at them. How strong was her abdomen to pull this feat? If it wasn't for Sun Eater's quick reflexes, they would have been crushed by those powerful arms. The large dents on the floor indicated she was somehow stronger than before. Ha 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 ha. Yes, I haven't bled like this for so long. I knew it. With you guys, I'll have lots of fun with you guys, she laughed maniacally. Then, Blood Frenzy grabbed the girl on her shoulder, holding her by the hoodie. Health pack? My face looks like a bloody mess. Isn't that awesome? But it also hurts like a bitch, and my nose is broken so I can't breathe. Do your thing, you spineless blood bank. Health Pack seemed to mutter something before shuffling a bit with her oversized long sleeves, revealing the pale skin of her forearm, which had a white bracelet tightly wrapped around her wrist. She gave Blood Frenzy the end of the tube that came from it, which she held with her teeth, and then the little girl pressed a button on the bracelet. The heroes watched in shock as the red liquid left the girl's body, only to be drunk by the tall, muscular, crazy woman. Her body twitched as her veins bulged up more, and her eyes glowed bloodshot red and focused on them, like a wild animal staring at its prey. If she looked crazy before, now she looks absolutely insane. Ha! That hits the spot. I love my blood, but drinking others' blood gives me the greatest high, especially yours, you sack of potatoes. It could be the drugs in it though. Hee ha. Ha 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 ha. Round 2. Boys, Blood Frenzy is coming for you. And without further ado, she leaped forward. Now, there was a good distance between her and Team Shield, but Fatgum barely had time to register her move and get in front of his young apprentices. Even then, the momentum she was carrying was so much that he couldn't absorb all the impact. Blood Frenzy didn't stop her charge, running and pushing Fatgum back, swinging her free arm like a bat and trying to hit his head, all the while laughing non-stop. When he finally found his footing again, Fat shifted his weight and spun around, tossing her over his shoulder. It would have been a perfect move if it wasn't for her planting her feet on the floor. With her arm still stuck, she stopped at a perfectly straight bridge position, directing her crazy eyes up at the pro hero. And from that position, she once again raised him from the floor. But this time there was no way Fat could let go. She actually got a hold of him with her stuck hand. It felt like a claw tearing through his flesh. What happened next was horrifying. Blood Frenzy brought Fatgum down and slammed him to the floor. She raised him again and repeated once more, increasing the strength and speed. Her laughter got louder and more hysterical as she continued to bludgeon the floor with the pro hero's face and body. The scene froze the young heroes for a moment, but after the second hit, they ran to help. Sun Eater wrapped his tentacles around her arms and torso, but it only slowed her down a bit. Red Riot and Real Steel also attempted to stop her right arm that was holding Fatgum, but to no avail. No matter how much effort they put into it, she wasn't stopping, and she was beginning to carve a dent with the shape of Fat's face on the floor, along with an increasing bloodstain. You too, let go of her, Sun Eater called, and once the hardening duo let go, he made his move. Chimera Kraken, Urchin mode. From the octopus tentacles constricting her arm and torso, dozens of spines sprung, piercing her flesh deep. If the pain and the sting of the poison didn't stop her, maybe the physical objects trespassing her muscles would. Ah, she stopped all right. Then her head turned around. I didn't forget about you guys. Wait for your turn. With her free arm, she grabbed the tentacles, ignoring how the spines perforated them, and spun Sun Eater around like a whip, slamming him on the floor. Good thing he had added turtle to the seafood buffet, otherwise he would have more than a fractured rib right now. The shell was good as a defense, but not so much on cushioning the impact, so he lost his wind for a while. Senpai, the hardening duo shouted, immediately jumping to hit her in the face, but she stepped back, way faster than before, and swatted them with a backhand. You'll have to try something else. That trick I already know, she shouted, walking towards the fallen teens when she felt something tugging her right arm. Oh, Fatty, you're still conscious. His face was numb from the repeated impact and he couldn't keep one eye open. Also, his nose was bleeding and he was sure he got a major concussion, judging by the blurry vision and multiple enemies. Nothing he wasn't prepared for. I thought you said you wanted to have fun. Firming his feet on the floor, Fat managed to spin her around, her hand still clawing his flesh, and hit her head on the floor with enough force to make her let go. Checking on the region she was gripping, the fabric was torn and the skin underneath had a deep purple hue, along with thin red lines. Nothing major then. Let's play, then, you and me, he taunted her as she got up. And let the boys miss all the fun? I think not. She dashed towards Sun Eater, still recovering from the impact, but she got tackled by Fatgum and pinned down to the floor face first in an arm lock. Come on, fatty, you gotta learn how to share. He was sure he dislodged her arm, but regardless she made him kiss the floor in the process. Her strength enhancing was on another level, or it could be the drugs in the blood of that little girl. The fight was getting so intense he almost forgot she was there. Health pack, to call her like that, this villainess didn't see her partner as more than an accessory, a tool for her to use. This made his blood boil. You should learn to finish one thing before starting another, he said, getting up, fists raised on guard. And you have to finish me first if you want to get to them, Fatcom said, carefully stepping sideways and getting in the way between the teens and blood frenzy. Ha, ha ha ha, ha 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 ha, fatty, you are so cool, she said, cracking her knuckles, and perhaps in a glimpse of sobriety, her face lost the twisted glee, leaving only a creepy, psychotic expression. And I'll love to force my fist through your skull. Come. Yes. He knew her type well, really confident in their raw strength. Villains like that are hard to fight, not only because they are strong, but because they can take a lot of punishment too. Sometimes it is a battle of attrition to see who gets tired first. They punch hard to the last drop of energy in them, and Fatcom could always count on that. He readied himself for the impact. His body already absorbed a lot of kinetic energy, but this blow would ensure he can take her out of the game on his next move. He didn't need to fake a punch. She wouldn't even try to read his moves. All he had to do was take that. He felt a part of the impact on his body as the waves traveled throughout the fat tissue. She hit way harder than he expected, or perhaps it was because he was starting to feel tired. Regardless, it was more than enough now. He fancied he could pull off something close to All Might like that. Holding her arm in place, he readied himself. Thanks, but you can keep it. Fatcom released all the accumulated kinetic energy into that single punch, burning all his stored fat in the process. Blood Frenzy tried to block with one arm, but it was just too powerful of a blow, sending her flying across the room and deep into the metal walls with a loud crash. Feeling the exhaustion creeping upon his body, he looked at the little girl on his other hand, being held by her hoodie. If he didn't grab her the moment he dealt that punch, she would be gone by now. As for the crazy lady, he was almost sure she would survive that. He was still catching his breath, looking around and assessing the situation. They got separated from Rukyu's team, got dropped in here by that sand guy, and had to fight this insanely strong woman. And judging by the message he got from Mandalay, they had their problems to sort out. They had to recover quickly and get back on track. The only problem was that he burned out all his defenses, so he could only count on his remaining physical strength and the boys for defense. Not ideal, but it would have to do. He then looked up at the crosswalk above them. Blood Frenzy must have been waiting for them here. These floodlights, and the shape of this space, it was like a stage. Then again, considering the reasons this group stated. Did we underestimate the gravity of the situation? Oi, hey, you, don't worry, I won't hurt you. Wait, where are you going? His thoughts were broken when he felt something shaking by his side. The little girl, who was dangling up to now, shuffled about and got off her black hoodie. Now on the floor, she ran as fast as her legs allowed her. A glance and Fatcom could see signs of malnourishment, along with a device hooked to her other arm. The yellow liquid in the vial attached to it could only be one thing, but that got pushed aside as his eyes moved up a bit. Much to his surprise, the tall woman was pushing herself out of the dent molded after her body in the wall. The hero quickly connected the dots. That's bad, Sun Eater, don't let the girl reach her, he shouted, already sprinting after Health Pack. Sun Eater got back on his feet right after Fat gave his finishing blow, and he checked on the hardening duo, a little bit dizzy, but mostly intact. Once he heard the command, he turned around and saw the girl desperately making her way towards that scary wall of muscles and Fatcom in his skinny form. His eyes widened with the urgency of the situation. The exhaustion didn't allow Fatcom to go very fast, but Sun Eater was in a better condition, and he was slightly faster as is, and he certainly was faster than that girl. The raven-haired teen also noticed her health wasn't the best, which made him question why she was going toward the one who probably harmed her the most. The answer was a somewhat sizable blood pack in her hand. That was far more blood than you normally take from a kid her size and age. Then again, who knows what they did to her? Sun Eater was almost catching up to Health Pack. He extended his hand and it stretched into the tentacles, reaching the girl in seconds. Capture successful. Unfortunately, the girl was more resourceful than he thought. Frenzy-chan, her weak, high-pitched voice was heard loud and clear for the first time, as she tossed the blood pack in the air. It landed right in front of the crazy woman, currently on her knees. "Finally, you're being useful," she said, picking up the pack and biting the corner. She sucked all the contents, not leaving a single drop left, then lowered her head. She held her arm, popped it back in place, then got back on her feet. Her eyes were once again glowing red, and her psychotic grin was back. Looking at Health Pack being held in place by Sun Eater, she began to laugh. "Kid, I'll say this only one time. Get away from the heroes, because otherwise you will be crushed along with them," she shouted, charging at them. Sun Eater and Fatgum braced for the impact while shielding poor Health Pack. But suddenly a buzzing noise cut the air, followed by Fatgum simply vanishing. "TCH, oi, mosquito, they are mine. Get lost, you ugly ass bastard." Another villain, and he took Fatgum away. "They're picking us one by one." But even if he was here, he used all his defense to take down that monster of a woman, and she's back up like it was nothing. This girl, she is probably responsible for this, which means if we want to win this fight. Getting up, Sun Eater held the little girl in his arms, making sure to keep her restrained with a few tentacles. "Red Riot, real steel. We can't let her get to this girl again. You'll have to tire her out." Yes, she sustained a lot of hits, and she doesn't have shock absorption like Fat. All that damage must be piling up and will come down on her when her blood frenzy ends. And that will happen if we keep those two apart. "Kirishima, Tetsu, I'm sorry, but I'm counting on you too." "Understood," both young heroes shouted as they once more took the front. Standing in front of that woman covered in blood and full of holes was quite intimidating, but they wouldn't let that stop them. "Ready to show her some real steel, bro?" "Always, bro. It will be a red riot." "Bring it on." Blood Frenzy laughed again. "Ha ha ha ha, that's the spirit." The two feline heroes were escorted through a dark hallway, partially being shoved around and partially having their limbs being tugged by invisible strings. The sensation was really pretty terrifying, especially because they were completely aware the whole time, save for a light-headed feeling and blurry vision. It was like being a spectator within your own head or watching a very immersive movie in the first person. If they felt this kind of uneasiness, imagine how these people pushing them must be feeling. "Don't worry too much, okay? We're pro heroes and we'll help you out." Mandalay relayed a telepathic message to the hostages, guiding them in hopes of giving them some peace of mind. However, she wasn't exactly sure how they would achieve that. Not only that, but she also felt very concerned about the current situation of the others, mainly the young ones. If only her telepathy allowed for two-way communication. She has always resented that part about her quirk, but now was not the time to dwell on this. They slowly approached a source of light, an exit from this dark corridor. Then they found themselves in a large room with a metal floor, and floodlights in the ceiling kept the place illuminated, so much so that it hurt a bit to look up. Ahead of the two women stood an elevated platform with stairs. Sitting on an ornate chair was another one of the villains behind the ongoing chaos outside. The gothic girl, with white pale skin, raven hair with red streaks tied into twin tails, a black dress with red and white frills, and knee-high leather boots, and atop her head a small silver crown rested. The girl turned her head as the two pro-heroes entered the room. Her feet dangled free from the side of the throne as she took a bit of an apple. Tossing the fruit aside, she jumped on her feet, making her way down the stairs and waited while the heroes slowly made the rest of the way to be face to face with her. Once there, they felt their legs shaking, and their knees hit the floor. Well, 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 look what the cat dragged in. 2 brand new dolls for me to play with. Oh, I'm sorry, I guess not completely brand new, right? Your team has been around for a good while. I know, I still have the entire collection of the cat's plush dolls, said the villain, cupping Pixabob's cheeks in her hand and forcing the hero to look up at her face. Meanwhile, the blondie seemed to contort her face. Oh, my bad, do you want to say something? Go on. As if a gag was removed from her mouth, Pixiebob felt she could move on her own again. The sudden feeling of getting back in control was just as jarring as losing it. What the, hey, you, I'll let you know that I'm still 18 at. Now, if you're going to say something so outrageously false, then I'm relegating your speech privileges again. How about you? Do you have something in mind? The villain then turned to Mandalay. Just like her friend, Mandalay felt the weird sensation of having control over her body, at least her mouth. I suppose you're the one controlling us, she said, staring calmly but defiant at the young lady. Why, yes, it is I. What gave me away? The doll makeup? The puppeteer motifs on my dress? My stunning personality? The ostensive throne behind you. Oh, really? Yes. Usually, it is a sign of lack of confidence and of desperation to be in control, she said, once again calmly, but putting on a faint smirk. This, as expected, upset the Gothic girl. A smartass, huh? I thought you would use your telepathy on me or something, she said, cupping Mandalay's face with a bit of violence. It doesn't work like that, and I don't need it to read someone like you. They stared at each other for a few intense seconds before Mandalay felt a sharp pain in her right arm. She would have winced if she could move her arms. She tried to turn her head around, and from the corner of her eyes she could see something jabbed in her arm, and a red liquid slowly flowing out. Oh, don't worry, it's just insurance, said the villain, pulling a syringe connected to a small cylindrical reservoir, one of many in a doll backpack she pulled from behind her. She placed that one in the bag and pulled out another, which she used to jab Pixiebob, taking some of her blood too. I got a little bit from your friends too from when you barged in uninvited. It's not much, but it will do for now. But where are my manners? I didn't even present myself. The villainess then took one step back. Pro-heroes, I am the 5th captain of Hemorrhage, the puppet master, Doll. The pleasure is all yours. And as she said that, Doll lifted the ends of her dress, bowing in an old-fashioned greeting. What's more, Mandalay and Pixiebob felt their bodies twitching and bowing too, except they went all the way down, touching their foreheads on the floor. As the young miss giggled to herself, another figure entered the room. She seemed startled and looked around, and when her eyes landed on the goth girl and her new dolls, she rushed to them, looking pretty upset. Doll, you absolute dork, what the hell are you doing? It was the punk rock girl. She also followed the color scheme, clad entirely in black. Battered jeans with rips on the knees, combat boots with metal tips, a plain shirt with a short jacket on top, both with the sleeves torn off. Her short, dark green spiky hair had a single bang dyed in red falling over her face, and she wore leather gloves without the fingertips. Around her waist were 2 belts full of knives of varied sizes. There were more blades attached to her legs, some strapped on her back, and by the looks of it, she had many more hidden blades at her disposal. Oh, Leech, you are right on time for my... Shut up, don't you know who that pro is? The girl now addressed as Leech pointed to the red-haired hero, still prostrate on the floor. Yeah, she's one of the cats, Mandalay. And do you know what her quirk is? Leech continued, increasingly more frustrated. One-way telepathy. And what do you think she has been doing all that time while you run your big mouth? Huh? She inquired, hands twitching to grab someone's neck. Meanwhile, Doll slowly realized what was going on. Ah, she tricked me, she said, prompting Leech to pinch the bridge of her nose. I'm surrounded by idiots. Why, you little rag? Hey, don't call me an idiot. It's your fault for not noticing earlier. My fault? You were the one giving them everything about us. It wasn't everything. I barely said anything of importance, okay? Their entire team already knows you are the one hindering their movements. They know our faces, remember? So what? I bet that muscle for brains already squashed the fat hero and the team of dorks. And I sent the 2 other kids to rust, so there's literally nothing to worry about MFFFM. Shut up, shut up, shut up. You clueless goth Lolita. You're giving out the plan, Leech shouted, covering her mouth. Once she was sure Doll got the message about not spilling any more beans, she looked down at Mandalay. You are good at reading people out, right? She got down on one knee and raised Mandalay so they could look in the eye. Come on, what am I thinking? The pro hero stared at her with a serious face. Her calm expression of before was long gone since she confirmed Nejire-chan and Deku were on their own and most likely walking to a death trap. This doll girl was the one restraining their moves, so it was a major priority to take her down. As for that other girl, Leech, she didn't seem like a big threat, despite the knives. Someone of her age, with that physical build, would hardly give them. What? Trouble? Yeah, maybe. I'm not exactly the fighter type. So, should I slit your throat open right now? She said, bringing a blade to Mandalay's neck. The cat hero was more surprised with how the girl guessed her thoughts, almost as if, I could read your mind? Huh, you didn't think you were the only one good at reading people, did you? Leech said, pressing the sharp edge more and more against the redhead's fair skin. Hey, Leech, that's not part of the plan. Rust will get super mad at us if we screw this up, Doll said, pulling Leech's arm back along with the knife. As if you didn't screw things up. What are we going to do if they all come after you? I can't protect your sorry butt, you know? Like hell that would happen. Plus I have enough blood on backup in case shit hits the fan. Rust said my role was the most important, so don't mess up my act. This is not a puppet theater at school, you knucklehead. Rust will really kill us if you flop this, she said, hitting the other girl on top of her head with a fist. Oh, that hurts, and don't mess with my hair or my crown, and don't call me a knucklehead. I'm not like Frenzy. But I bet you 2 share the same 10 brain cells. Move! Leech suddenly pushed Doll back, who tripped and fell on her behind. As for the punk girl, she found herself in a headlock from Mandalay, while Pixie Bob barely missed her target. TCH, they found out you can get distracted, Doll. The blonde hero lunged at the goth girl and grabbed her, but before she could get a solid grip, Pixie Bob felt her body freeze again, with one arm already around the villainess. Both pro heroes slowly let go of them, and the 2 young ladies took some distance. Ah, my body, I can move again. Hurry up and run away. Some of the civilians nearby shouted as they also regained control of their bodies, but it was painfully short-lived. Tisk tisk, did I say you could leave, my dolls? Doll said, and just like that, they froze in place again. If there's something I hate, is a broken toy that doesn't work properly. What are we going to do? The situation couldn't be worse. Pixie Bob can't use her powers here with all that metal covering, and controlling Quirk is really troublesome. And that other girl said she could read people like me, but she reacted way too fast for someone who was distracted. They started arguing, and I slowly regained control of my body. So I told Pixie Bob to handle the goth girl, and she also knew I realized their weakness. Her body control requires focus. This is not simple expression reading. As Mandalay tried to think this through, her eyes fell on Leech, who looked back at her. She did come in scolding Doll for letting info slip, so Leech herself would be more careful with what she spoke in front of the heroes, especially Mandalay. She was hiding something, or perhaps something she said was meant to mislead them. Whatever it was, if the girl felt it was important enough to hide, perhaps Mandalay could use this to her favor. Are you done reading me, or is this a vice of yours? That broke the pro hero out of her thoughts. There was definitely something wrong going on with that punk girl. Whatever. Doll, get on with your show already, she ushered the goth girl, walking to the sidelines. Meanwhile, Doll returned to the top of the stairs and sat on her throne, clearing her throat before she spoke. Well then, in this glorious night we, the hemorrhage, shall begin the expurgation of all that rot within our society. And to demonstrate that, we put to the test those who are most responsible for such corruption, the so-called pro-heroes. Doll waved her hand and suddenly Mandalay and Pixie Bob regained control over their bodies. At the same time, a couple of steel doors opened on the walls, and from them, a crowd of people began to pour into the room. The two women looked in shock as they saw what looked like a small army, most likely made of civilians, all of them marching in lockstep towards them. Wait, Mandalay, don't tell me. It seems like it. If that girl can control anyone, then these people probably were captured and enslaved. But that many? We don't know the extent of her power, nor if it has some limitations. When we were under control, it felt like my arms and legs were being tugged around. Our movements were pretty janky and robotic. Well, everyone over there looks much more in sync, she said, pointing to the crowd now gathered in a circle around them. Sigh, this is not going to end well for us. Behold, the people these false idols are supposed to protect now are ready to strike them down. Do you fight back? Or do you let these innocent civilians be the blade that will cut out the rot? What shall you do, heroes? The cats had no other choice but to ready themselves for a fight. Meanwhile, in another of those large metal rooms, Rukiyu and Maruko listened to the information Mandalay passed on to them. However, they had their problems to address. The control over their bodies was back, but they were locked in that suspicious place. Judging by what they heard, everyone was sent to one of those, except this room, in particular, was almost pitch black. Instead of floodlights, it had very dim neon tubes up in the ceiling and a few on the floor. But the most suspicious thing was the huge screens hanging from the walls on opposite sides. It was quite ominous, as if something was watching over them. Something broke the eerie silence, the sound of metal and cogs turning, hydraulics and springs contracting and expanding. From the top of the wall they were facing, above one of the locked steel doors, some kind of pod emerged, being carried by a robotic arm. The metallic dome shielding it opened, and with it, the screens flickered on. Great, what now? Maruko thought out loud, getting into her fighting stance. The screens only had static at first, but then it switched to the face of a very old, sick-looking man. His frail and sparse white hair was pulled behind, and his face was covered in wrinkles and dark patches. His eyeballs were darkened and sunk, and the old geezer could barely keep his eyes open. A respirator mask covered his mouth and nose, and behind him, all kinds of life support machinery could be seen. Adding to that, long, labored breathing began to sound in the room, probably from hidden speakers. On the screens, the man seemed to look down, directly at them. After a couple of wheezes, his harsh, cracked voice finally came out. "Heroes, what are your names?" "Is this for real?" Maruko said. "Did they really send a senile old fart to take care of us?" She sounded pretty indignant. "Now is not the time to ask for a good fight, Maruko," Rukiyu chided her. "Look at this place and how they tricked us. Whoever these people are, they had a lot of time to prepare, so we can't lower our guards. PFFT, as if we needed to. Are we looking at the same person? This shadow of a man can barely stay awake. Oi, old man, point us to the exit, you wrinkled wax ball." More wheezing and labored breaths followed her taunt, but then the old man leaned forward a little, assisted by the special chair that cradled his withered body. There wasn't a logical way to explain the feeling they got as the man stared down at them. They couldn't actually see his features up there, but the eyes on the screen seemed to be directed at them, looking into their very beings. Even with the spark of life long gone from this man's expression, it was as if he overflowed with hatred, as if his eyes would shoot lasers any time now. Wheeze such arrogance. From the youth, you heroes, cough cough really didn't learn a single thing. His tone was stern. Despite the coughing and wheezing, this man inspired a certain feeling of respect. Or perhaps fear. Names are important. Heroes. Wheeze not for fame, but for the meaning they carry. So, I ask you again, young cough foolish heroes, what are your names? Did he just lecture us? Maruko seemed to not believe what her ears just heard. Hey, cut the crap and MFFF. My name is Rukyu, and the loudmouth here is Maruko, said the blondie, muffling the rabbit hero before she said something to piss off the person who probably holds the key for them to leave this place and find the kids. I see, you seem wheeze wiser than your friend. That's a low bar, believe me. So, I'll try my luck and guess you're here to test us in some way? Your friend with the red cloth covering his face said something about that. It took a while until the response came. First, a burst of broken laughter, often interrupted by coughs and gasps for air. Then the words of the sick man. A test, you say? No, I don't believe young Rust had that in mind. No, this wheeze is a purgatory. This didn't sound good at all to the dragon hero. So we're not supposed to escape this alive. You're cough 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 surprisingly smart for a young-looking hero. Yes, this place shall be your grave, and I will be your executioner. There was no doubt in his words, and she had to believe he meant it, despite his looks saying otherwise. However, Maruko had something else in mind. Removing the hand that firmly sealed her mouth, she shouted at the man handing above them. I want to see you try, old fart. Don't think for a second you're not getting an ass kicking because your bones are turning into dust, she said, swatting Rukyu's arms away and flexing her legs to warm up. Maruko, wait, we don't know what that villain is capable of. He's capable of boring me to death. We could wait for him to bite the dust, but I'm not gonna just sit still. Who knows where Deku and Nejire ended? She snapped back at Rukyu, surprising the blondie on the last bit. So she was worried about them too. Even so, that's all the more reason to be cautious. You can be cautious, Rukyu. I'm doing things my way now. And with that, Maruko jumped into action, quite literally. She landed on a wall, aiming for the platform suspending the old villain, and jumped off, swinging her leg in a wide arc. The steel dome came back up, and she had to change her attack at the last second so she wouldn't break her foot. Instead, it turned into a stomp, which left a dent in the shield. TCH, where is all that bravado you had just now? Huh? Fight me, you coward. Maruko kicked back from the dome, landing on the floor and immediately bouncing on and off the wall. Her feet landed again on the steel dome, shaking the arm that suspended the entire thing. She did it a few more times, leaving bigger dents each time. Get out of there, old man. I thought you were going to be my executioner. What? Don't want to come out and play with this little rabbit? She said, relentlessly landing hits on the structure, making it rock from side to side. Meanwhile, Rukyu watched with great apprehension. She didn't doubt Maruko's strength, which was the most concerning part. For them to prepare for so long and then send this man who had both feet on his grave, there had to be a reason behind it. Her eyes moved from the fast-moving rabbit hero to the screens displaying his face. Despite the provocations and the shaking, the man didn't seem moved at all. All that she could see on his face was that ice-cold hatred in his eyes. The youth has no patience. Cough, cough, you are all cut from the same bad cloth. Arrogant, wheeze ignorant, foolish, wheeze blind and spineless. I don't need to come out. You'll be dead without me lifting a finger, said the old man, prompting Maruko to stop her attacks for a brief moment. She held onto the steel dome and began to kick it with the ball of her feet, slowly caving in a dent. I don't have time to stupid games. Bring your sorry ass out here, you sack of bones. The old man then began to laugh, mixed with coughs as usual. Time? You have no Notion of time, brat. I have, seen time pass. I have seen people come and go. I was I was there when the first peculiarities, appeared. This immediately got the attention of Ryukyu. Wait, how? How old is that man? I saw the the terror of villainy. Thieves, killers, people drunk in their own power. I saw the rise of all for one, and the rise of heroes too. But not you. Your ilk is not worthy of the title of hero. You lack focus. You lack drive. You lack determination to do what is needed. Those prisons are useless until everyone sees there are serious consequences to their bad actions. There will always be villains. What the hell are you going on about now? Have you skipped your meds? You're the bad guy here, veteran. Maruko stopped kicking and dropped to the floor. That dome was way stronger than she thought, or perhaps it was that other goth girl hindering her strength. Regardless, she would keep going until it broke. She had lots of energy to spare. No, your generation is not worthy of the title. You soil its meaning with false images, fake motivations. Your society is a husk, rotten on the inside. TCH, he's speaking a lot now. You didn't see, but he just chewed a bunch of meds like they were fruit gummies. And who knows what else he's hooked up to up there, Ryukyu explained. They sent a dead man to stop us, huh? Do you still think they planned that far ahead? Listen, fake heroes. Names carry meaning. They instill emotions, shape minds, and can be immortalized or forgotten. All for one. Destro, All Might. Stain. Their names carry meaning. They instill fear, respect, or admiration. Your names, they will only inspire shame and disgust. Do you understand? Cough, cough, cough. And what meaning does yours carry? Ryukyu asked back. These types of idealistic villains were truly the worst type to deal with. The man kept breathing with difficulty. Maybe the speech was too much for his non-existent health. Even a plague can have a purpose. In order to heal this society, we must first break it. Cough, cough, Pestilence. This is the last name you will hear, heroes. As Pestilence looked down at them through the screens in the back, the machines began to move and make noise. A sickly dark red liquid began to flow in tubes behind him, coming in and out of the machines, being stirred and mixed. And then, from below the platform, a dark red mist started to descend into the room. Oi, 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 are you kidding? My peculiarity is my curse. Bad blood left me in this decrepit state, but it also allowed me to watch the march of time. All for one sowed terror, All Might brought hope. You, fake heroes, brought the corruption, and we shall cleanse it by cutting off the dead tissue. Not in a million years. Your retirement is now, old fart. Maruko sprung into action again, jumping at the still-closed dome and hitting it with powerful kicks. She was making progress, but it was slow. But after a few strikes, she felt her throat burn, which forced her to slow down. What the hell? This is cough cough. Maruko, get down from there, now, Ryukyu shouted, transforming into her dragon form and flying to catch the rabbit hero, then flying to the farthest side of the room. Shit, what is going on now? It's his blood. It must be toxic, and the machines are turning it into a mist. Ryukyu deducted. Then how is it not killing that sack of bones? Didn't you hear him? His current health is caused by the quirk, but it also keeps him alive. Great, and how do we beat him? We can't breathe in that mist, no matter what. There are only 2 locked doors here, so he must be planning to fill the entire room. We'll have to think of something before that happens, and keep away from the source as much as we can. You know this plan doesn't do anything, right? Said the rabbit hero, trying to clear her throat, but to no avail. Use your brain instead of your mouth. We can't be stopped here. Deku and Nejire-chan stumbled in the dark for a while until they came to a large round metal room. The door they came through closed shut behind them, and they felt the control over their bodies fade. Nejire-chan, are you all right? Yes, just a little dizzy. The brunette answered as her vision stopped being blurry. Where are we, though? They looked around for a while in the empty space and saw nothing but another steel door, probably locked too. They picked us one by one and separated the group. These villains prepared well to deal with us. But how did they know who would be involved? Did someone leak the operation or... Deku, look! Nejair stopped his mumbling to point out at the door sliding open, and from it came a now familiar figure. You! His emerald green eyes locked on the man with a red scarf and arm cannons. Yo, brat, Napalm answered shortly. After him, being carried by a cloud of sand, came the supposed leader behind all of this, Rust. Greetings, hero prototypes. My name is Rust, and this is what you would call my partner in crime, Napalm. You are still students, right? Do you have hero names already? He talked casually as if hell wasn't breaking loose outside because of him. The two young heroes, on the other hand, were definitely on the edge, especially Deku. He has seen firsthand how dangerous Napalm was, and that other guys looked just as problematic. However, they shouldn't be hasty. Nejair-chan, Deku, they answered. I see. Nejair-chan and Deku, then, please, watch this with attention. As Rust spoke, a couple of monitors emerged from the floor, showing rooms similar to the one they were. Suddenly, it became clear what he wanted to show. They could see their friends, each one fighting their own battles, which meant they would have to do the same here. But before that, Deku had to confirm something. What is the meaning of all this? The criminals outside are already being taken care of, and then the other pros will come to this place. What did you even plan to do? Rust wagged a finger at him. All in due time, my young hero. First, you must listen to the lesson, then you may ask questions. Placing his hands together, Rust floated up in the sand cloud. And just to make sure you'll pay utmost attention, I'll let you know that every room you see on the screens is filled with explosives. One wrong move and everything aside from this place will be burned and buried. Understood? There was little they could do about it now, so they had to comply. Splendid. So, about the question you raised earlier, I would tell you anyway. This is the push forward of something great, something that wasn't started by us. You see, we're just carrying the vision of the hero killer, Stain. The mention of that name made Deku shake a little internally. His encounter with the hero killer was one of the times he got pretty close to death, of which the number was growing faster than he expected. This society is sick, rotten to the core. The so-called pro-heroes are nothing but hacks, paid actors that represent false hope and ideologies. With All Might's retirement, we have been left with all the remaining scourge, of which little can be saved. Yes, even the heroes in training are part of that scum, as they're given the title of hero by those who bring about the filth. Rust kept on running his mouth, and with each offense to the heroes and his friends, Deku felt angrier and angrier, but so far he contained himself, despite his hands being balled into fists. The entire time, Napalm glared at the two teens. There are, however, a few exceptions. Some true heroes deserve the title and are the standard Stain has envisioned for this society. Yes, promising heroes such as you, Deku. This broke the tension within the green teen. Eh, do you know Deku? Nejair asked, surprised, almost by reflex of her curiosity. Why, yes, we have been searching for him ever since Stain was captured and locked at that prison. The boy who was recognized by Stain himself. I thought it was merely a rumor, but after looking around and verifying for myself, I can see it. It was then that I had my vision, a world free of those fakes, where the true heroes can actually save people and give them true hope. A world without lies, without corporations sinking their claws into the title of hero. A world where being a hero is not merely a profession, but a vocation. And I believe you can be the pioneer, Deku, he said, turning around and facing Deku directly. You will be the cornerstone of a new era. An era that is past All Might but still carries his ideals. An era where every hero saves the weak and innocent with a smile on their faces. The young heroes stared at him as if he had grown a second and a third head. "And you plan to do that by killing the heroes?" Deku asked, rage filling his chest. "Of course. This is a necessary step, like removing the dead, infected tissue from a wound. To purify this society, we must first bring it down to its knees. You can't show people the light of hope if they never met despair before. How would they know the difference? Before injecting the clean blood, we must bleed out all the old blood full of impurities. It's a hurtful process, but it is for the best. It is necessary for our survival. And given the extent of this world of fake heroes, no little amount of blood will do. It will require a total hemorrhage to purge all this filth. Do you understand now, Deku? Do you realize why our mission is so important?" There were lives at risk here, so he had to endure everything in silence as he was asked. But Deku was reaching boiling point. That man, he was completely insane. What has been said about villains with ideals was true. He now could see why it was such a problem. This guy wouldn't stop until his vision became true right in front of his eyes, which was why they needed to stop them here. The pro-hero landed on the metal floor with a thud. Usually, the drop wouldn't hurt him, but he didn't have his body fat cushioning right now. As he got up, Fatgum looked around. Another room just like the other he was in previously. Then, he looked up and spotted a doorway up high in the wall, probably how he got here and the way back to the boys. "I have to hurry up. Things will get ugly with that woman," he said, looking for a way to reach the crosswalk above him. But the sound of buzzing caught his attention. Across the room, a large winged creature landed, contorting and squirming at weird angles. There was a sick, wet noise as the creature seemed to tear itself apart, shedding its dark gray shell, and out of that, covered in a green slurry, came a miniature version of the former, Mosquito. "Sigh, so you are the one who brought me here. Hey, I don't have time to fight you," he said, tying his now oversized jacket around his waist. "I'm not going to fight you, hero. This will be an onslaught." Mosquito jabbed his arm with an injection of the enhancing drug, and his body mutated into that larger form again, with a disproportionately large upper body. "Yuck, you're one ugly fella, huh?" Fatgum readied his fists. "Bzzzzz, shut up, shut up, shut up and die already," shouted the crazed villain as his wings flapped at high speeds, propelling him forward like a bullet. His actual speed, however, was probably lesser than what he had in mind. It wasn't that hard for Fatgum to avoid his attacks. They were very simple and basic, just straight dashed aiming at his chest or head, trying to punch him or pierce him with that pointy nose. "You are ugly, but you are not very smart either, are you?" Mosquito landed on the wall, breathing heavily, then dropped to the floor as his body began to contort and shed again. "Hey, stop doing that. That drug is clearly causing you severe harm." "What do you even know? This," he said, getting up with another injection in hand, "I'll use to mess up all of you pretty heroes." Mosquito morphed again and resumed the same attacks. Despite being faster, he was much more erratic and with a worse aim. "Oi, listen to me. That drug will end up killing you if you use it like that." Fatgum kept on avoiding Mosquito's attack, which only infuriated the villain even more. "The only thing dying here is you," he shouted, pulling another syringe and jabbing his arm. Mosquito curled on the floor, holding his sides as his body got larger, but not much. He was breathing heavily and his footing was shaky. "I told you, you're abusing your own body. These enhancing drugs are horrible, and you shouldn't use them under any circumstance. There's a reason why they were banned, you know?" Even in his weakened state, it was hard for Fat to take that poor, ugly guy seriously. "Ack, I hate this about you heroes, always lecturing others, always looking cool. It's not my fault I was born like this. It's not my fault mom didn't want me. Bzzzzz. I really hate cool-looking heroes like you." Mosquito dashed forward, aiming at Fatgum once again. His attack narrowly missed. "I'm gonna kill you." Then I'm going after that bunny girl and the dragon one too, and I'll rip off their hearts and bite their livers. That's oddly specific. Fatgum readied himself again, feet firm on the ground and fists raised. He didn't have time to waste with that guy. Come on, you hideous thing, let's get this over with. When I'm done with you, there will be nothing left but a oof. Mosquito dashed forward the same way as always, but instead of dodging, Fat just stepped to the side and connected his knee to the villain's guts. As he imagined, all that size doesn't translate into actual strength. He doubted this guy would fly if he weighed any more than in his original form. The pro hero followed with 2 consecutive hooks and a sucker punch, bending the villain's pointy nose and knocking him to the floor. The insectoid man rolled in pain. If that was from the hits or his body reacting to the side effects of the drug, he couldn't tell. Regardless, after throwing up and shedding his outer shell again, Mosquito passed out on the floor, covered in a nasty sludge. Sigh, I said before, you were abusing it. Now, how do I get up there? Fat said to himself as he began to search for a way out. The 2 young heroes had to stand still as they watched the pro heroes and their friends fight through the monitors. Across the room, the villains looked over them in silence. Well, mostly in silence, as Napalm tapped his foot on the metal floor impatiently. Meanwhile, Rust followed with his speech. Witness, Deku, how the heroes this society praises so much fail in every aspect. They are not strong enough, they lack the resolve to get rid of evil for good, and they hurt those around them. They are nothing but liars, a beacon of false hope. But with you, with the one chosen by Stain, I think? No, I'm sure. Join our cause, and we'll make this world a better place. We'll uproot the source of corruption and cut off every single bit that has been tarnished, pro-hero by pro-hero. So, what is your answer? He finished, offering a hand to the green-haired teen, and waited for his response. Deku had his eyes fixed on the screen, following their movements, analyzing the situations, and thinking of different solutions to each problem. And at the same time, he processed this rather long speech that was forced onto them. Not only was this man insane, but he also wanted him to join his club of weird cultists. He worshipped Stain, of all people. The only other person he knew that felt this strongly for the hero killer was a certain Blondie, who also had all the screws loose in her head. Assuming everyone in this gang was just as crazy as him, 2 is a coincidence, 8 is a pattern. Oh, right, he made him an offer. Honestly, he was so overtaken by the situation and his mind was so all over the place, it was hard to focus on a single thing for more than 5 seconds. The plan flew out of the window the moment they stepped into the building because they underestimated just how serious these villains were. No, even before that. Perhaps they shouldn't have brought heroes in training to this mission. Maybe they should have assembled a better team of pro-heroes to handle this. But these questions could wait. Right now, there was one specific feeling building up and boiling inside his chest. That villain spent the last who knows how many minutes dumping trash on the reputation of all pros, standing on a bizarre moral high ground. And to top it all, he asked him to join their cause. Oh, Deku had an answer for him all right. This might be irresponsible of him to act like this, but some things Deku simply couldn't let pass unchecked. My answer? Sparks began to fly from his body. His eyes locked with the villain. Never. And you all can go to hell, he shouted, raising his fists. Oh, angry Izuku Nejire looked surprised for a second before taking her fighting stance too. Tisk tisk tisk. So your mind has been polluted with false ideals already. What a shame, Napalm. Rust shook his head, then waved his hand at his partner. While the masked man retreated on his sand cloud, the other villain walked toward them, with a syringe in hand. About time. I was almost dying of boredom. Well then, brats, he said, pointing an arm cannon at them. Since you want so badly to be heroes, I'll go ahead and make sure you die like one. A scarlet jet shot in their direction, more specifically aimed at Nejire-chan, but before it could hit her, a bolt of green lightning removed her from the way. Nejire-chan, you handle Rust. I'll take care of the other one, okay? Got it. Be careful, Deku. The brunette nodded, and as soon as Deku put her on the floor, she ran after the masked man while the green teen faced napalm. Ha ha ha. You think you can take me on alone, kid? The villain taunted him. I won't lose to someone like you. Heh, then show me a good time, kid. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through What If Everyone Gets Obsessed with Deku and Harem. I hope you found it as intriguing and thought-provoking as we did. A big shout out to guy number 23 for crafting such a compelling story. Don't forget to check out their profile on fanfiction.net for more amazing works. The link is in the description below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to What If Deku 2 for more fascinating explorations into the world of fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we're always excited to hear your thoughts and suggestions in the comments section. See you guys in the next video.